There we go. What is up, everybody? We are back for another episode of the Plays and Fades YouTube channel live stream on Friday. Breaking down some fights with my boy LiamPicksFights. And I'm honored to have him here because you know what? It's a pay-per-view card. And I'm hyped and ready to go. I mean, we got a ton of fights. We got some absolute bangers, 14 in total. And you know what? I think there's a lot of money to be made. I know you're going to put your money where your mouth is today. I know you got a bunch of units on the line. And that's the most exciting way to watch fights. I'm really ready for it. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well, man. And I feel like I'm going to have quite a stressful Saturday. I hope I won't have to be sweating all these plays. You know, a lot of my action was actually locked up, well in advance. I had some parlays down, multi-event parlays that are going to come to a fruition. One way or the other, we're either going to cash some big bets, or there's going to be massive, massive upsets on this UFC card. That I will tell you. So I am really excited to get into this card, man. I got action top to bottom, sideways, not quite on every matchup, but, there's even a couple plays I'm still considering, honestly. So I don't know if I'm going to get myself to the pay window on any of these other plays, but we'll have to see, my man, and I'm excited to break it down with you.
You know what, man? There's a couple plays where I'm going to need your help. I need you to either talk me off that ledge or just push me that extra inch forward just so I can bet them. And that's over here. We're ready to talk about some fights. Feel free to send any messages in the chat, hang out with us, any questions. We got Jay Rich here. What's going on, my friend? And you know what? We're just here to make some money. So don't be scared. Throw some stuff in the chat. And you know what? Let's start right away. First fight of the night. This is a play right here. One of the ones you were just talking about them, where I need to know where you're sitting on this one because I am so close to pulling the trigger on a play or two for this one. We have Jonathan Pierce, sitting a record of 10-4, facing Omar Morales, 11-1, with his only loss coming to the rising prospect in Gigachatsi. So I gotta ask you first of all, way to start a fight. See a fish in the first of the night.
I missed that, but I think what you asked me was who is going to win this first fight of the night, who I got as my side. So I could just break it down for you, man. I'll go right from my notes. And I had slight lean towards Omar Morales when I looked at this fight. I had had him about minus 135 by my estimation. So what I wanted to do for this matchup was watch the odds. I wanted to see where this fight was going to sort of settle out. And, more importantly, man, I just want to do a little bit more tape study because I have a bunch of notes on Omar Morales. So I didn't go back and watch as much of his tape, but my notes are pretty glowing about the guy. So that's why I want to go back and revisit it to make sure that I still see the same things. He's a little bit older for the division, but I actually kind of rate Omar Morales. I think that loss to Giga Chikadze has aged tremendously well because he was pretty competitive in that fight. Obviously he got outworked and outlanded and was getting beat up a little bit, but he didn't quit on himself in that fight, was able to find a couple decent hooks and things that put off Giga. And, I think that's part of the reason people maybe were discounting Giga, which is that he hasn't always looked tremendous in all of his fights, but it was the likes of Jamal Emmers. It was the likes of, Omar Morales. And those guys are pretty tough, credible guys. That featherweight division is just one of the deepest in the UFC. And so, JSP on the other side, this is a guy I haven't typically been lining up to back. I also don't like Kai Kamaka, so I don't think I had any action on that fight. Probably passed up a bag there. And then, that Joe Lozon loss, obviously really bad, but also it was kind of, he was set up to fail. It's like a UFC debut after the Contender Series in Boston against the Boston Strangler, Joe Lozon. Just terrible matchup for him. And he trains with a good team, Fight Ready MMA, like those guys. I typically like what they're doing. Don't always like to stand in front of them, but man, I think Omar Morales is probably just a better fighter. And if he doesn't get outworked, I think he's probably more live to finish. I think that if he gets out wrestled here, that would surprise me just a little bit. I know that JSP is pretty insistent with his wrestling, and he's definitely live to get a takedown or two, but he also gets a little bit reckless. And I do think Omar is the more technical guy. I think he's savvy. When I've seen Omar end up on top before in the UFC, he stays in top position and he can do damage and he can stay safe. So I actually wouldn't be all that surprised if Omar ended up on top at some point and was able to hold some minutes from there. He's pretty good from top position. So, man, I think that this is a fight that favors Omar Morales stylistically. And, I think minus 135 is probably a conservative cap on him there. So I'm going to go back and revisit the tape. And I'm going to see where I end up shaking out. But where are you leaning on this fight, buddy?
Well, first of all, I think I fixed my issues I was having, so I think that's better now. But yeah, it's a tough one for me to read because the more that line climbs up, the more plus money I'm getting on JSP. I'm kind of liking it a bit, and I don't think it should be that wide. I do think Morales should be favored here, and rightfully so. I mean, he's looking like he's doing pretty well, and I'm a big fan of his striking. He does have powerful leg kicks, as I saw in the chat. Yeah, powerful leg kicks too. So I do think that if it stays on the feet the entire time, that it's going to be a fun fight for Morales here. I think it's going to be his fight. But the ground game is what scares me. I think that you can't count out JSP. I think he is pretty relentless with it, and I think he does have a decent path to victory if he is able to get that off. So I was more looking into the fight doesn't go line. Because if you look at Jonathan Pierce, he actually has only ever had 2 fights ever go to the scorecards. And Omar Morales, I mean, he's winning a lot of his fights by knockout too. And we have seen Pierce finished in the UFC already in the first round. So when you're giving me plus money, that's the one where I was really just thinking about pulling the trigger on that one. But no action on me yet. I mean, I'm thinking about it, and it could easily just be a striking affair where Morales just kicks him out from range, a couple shots in from Pierce here and there. You never know; it could go all 3 rounds. So it's not one I'm super confident on, but you never know what's going to happen in this one. So I do think the under is pretty live here. It could be a submission by Pierce if he's able to get off his wrestling, or if Morales, he does have big power. He's a powerful dude, so it could be another first round finish, just like Lozon was able to do to JSP. So it's a tough one here. I think I side with you in the fact that I do think Omar should be favored on that price tag, but I don't know, man. You keep giving me those plus 170s, plus 180s, and you never know what's going to happen.
Wow, is it really up that high? I haven't checked best fight odds all day. Let's go check.
No, it is not up that high. Not up that high. I got it mixed up with my other fight. Sorry, but no, it's getting up there. Plus
145. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if it keeps climbing, I capped it around, like if I got plus 160, I'd pull the trigger right away. So
that makes sense to me, man. And I had capped him at that minus 135 spot, so that makes sense to me. Obviously I think Omar is just a better and more skilled fighter. But I also think 6 years older, a little bit of a concern. He's got a reach advantage here. Yeah, he could definitely knock him out. That would not surprise me, but I think all of his finished losses, JSP, are on the ground. The ground and pound finish to Joe Lozon, which was like a really weird, awkward, like horrible position. And then he got like toe holded and submitted early in his career. So, I don't know. I think he could get finished. I might look at that FanDuel double chance on Omar Morales knockout and submission, see if that is juicy or not. But yeah, man,
you know how powerful he is.
I'm probably going to end up sitting it out if it stays at this price, or putting maybe a unit down on Omar Morales if I really like what I see when I watch the tape.
Yeah, pre-tape, it was Morales all day for me, and I was even considering a bet on the Morales side here. It's just the line's getting a bit out of hand. So I know Dalton's out there telling me not to fall for the plus money trap, and I know I think I should probably stay away from it. Considering all the exposure I have on the card already, this might be just a Pierce on DraftKings thing. Which, by the way, I got to get you into that. We got to get you some DraftKings going on one day.
Yes, sir.
But this is one of the ones where what I am looking at right now is going to be, I think there's plus 120s available on the fight doesn't go. And I think that's pretty live. I mean, it's the first fight of the night. Usually those have a tendency of finishing. I like to see, especially in those big pay-per-view cards. So I don't know. You never know, man. I'm liking it here, but I'm going to stay away from it for right now. No plays for me just yet. And I say we move on. I mean, that was, I really like your thoughts on that one. So pass from both of us to start the night. And let's go right on to the next
I'm
fight
right there
of
with
the
you though,
night.
man. If I make a DGen fight doesn't go to decision parlay that's not tracked, I have one that's tracked already. But if I make one that's not tracked and add a couple more legs, that's one that I'll definitely consider.
Yes, yeah,
At that
yeah.
plus
No,
money total, I think that's a good
we'll
shot.
see how it goes. I got a bet in on some MLB tonight. So we'll see
Nice.
if that. Yeah, I got a nice couple like my Blue Jays going up tonight in a game where they should really win in like a must-win game. So we'll see if I get my money back from that if I want to G-gen it on some fight doesn't go. But let's move right along to one of the weirdest debut fights we've ever seen in the UFC. Someone who shouldn't really be in the UFC considering his last few fights. I mean, Martin Sano, 4-2-1, someone that didn't come off the Contender Series, and the only reason he's here is because he's a Diaz brother, friend, and main training partner, facing Matt Semmelsberger, 8-3, who's been pretty active, who's done pretty well in the UFC, and this line is getting up there. We have Matt Semmelsberger now sitting at -500 in a few places, and rightfully so. I do not think Sano is that good, and if it wasn't for the Diaz brother or Nick Diaz returning on this card, he would not be signed to the UFC. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong, but I would also say this. I keep hearing people say that, this guy sucks and whatever. And I'm like, but he doesn't fight. So how do you know? Like, and a lot of his fight tape is just old. And so I don't know. For me, there's just a lot of unknowns about him. But with that being said, everything would look to favor Semmelsberger, in my opinion. But for me, this was a matchup that, there's a lot of big favorites on this card. And for me, this was the biggest favorite that had proven the least. With all that being said, right, I've just said all those things that I think are true. Every sharp on my show last night was like, bro, there's free money on Matthew Semmelsberger. Take it. So I'm obviously going to look into this one a little deeper. This is like bottom of the barrel type fight. Excuse me, what's the guy's name? Not Maximov. I'm confusing my Diaz proteges.
Sano?
Yeah, man. Sano, I haven't seen a tremendous amount of his stuff, but it's just not impressive, man. So even just from a resume standpoint, I don't like backing people with that few pro fights unless we're on an LFA show or, Contender Series maybe. I really don't like to see that. Unless your name's Zaruk Adashev and you got 5 pro fights in the UFC, it's going to be really tough. So I don't know, man. I think that everybody else is on Semmelsberger big, and I hope that they all cash, and God bless them. And I do think Semmelsberger probably finishes here down the stretch. I was impressed with the Chaos Williams fight. I kind of rate Chaos. I think everybody thinks he sucks really bad, but I just think that he kind of lost like a weird decision to Michelle Pajeda that I thought he won, frankly. But, was what it was. So I think that was a pretty decent look for Semmelsberger in a loss. And, I think he's probably, a rightful big favorite here. I just think that when somebody opens at like -175, which I think he did, let me double check that. Yeah. -160 is what he opened at. He's now -508. Something just smells a little fishy to me there. That for me is just enough to pass on it. Oh, Jay's with me, man. He smells a big tuna. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass on that. Salute Ben Parrish, but I got nothing to offer on this one, brother.
This is one of the spots where this is a very parlayable card, and when we see on these big cards, there's going to be a lot of people just throwing out those huge parlays, and I do think it's a parlay piece this week. I do have them locked up in a nice 1.5 unit parlay. The other leg I will disclose later. And I do think it's somewhat free money, but I'm not as sold as other people. I won't be there dropping like 10 units on Matt Semmelsberger. I won't be betting on him to finish. And honestly, I hope he doesn't finish. I hope he wins a boring decision because I don't want his DraftKings points. I'm going to stay away from him on DraftKings because of those unknowns. But I am gonna try to take my shot on the free money. I don't think Sano is that good, and you can't really. I don't see why you can be betting at all on someone who hasn't fought in the past 6-7 years. I haven't won since 2011. So. I mean, I say that, and then we'll talk about Nick Diaz later.
Yeah.
But it's
I was going to say,
just,
be careful because we'll have to hold you to those rules later.
I know I won't say anything like that, but it's one of those spots where it seems like a setup, but we do know why Santos on the card, and I hope it's a good fight too. You're opening the fight. I'm not done with this most solid read, but I will put my money on Suttlesburg as a parlay piece this week. I say move right along. It's not the most interesting fight. Oh my! But I do think it'll hopefully bring some fireworks. You never know. What if Santos comes out and is just an absolute unit out there? You don't know what's going to happen. But
that's the thing. When you haven't seen somebody in so long, they're definitely live to come back better. But I also think he's probably going to lose.
Well, we go from one Diaz training partner to the next. We have Nick Maximoff, 6-0, facing someone in, this one's late, Cody Brundage, who, by the way, congratulations to you on beating the line movement on that one. I went out there and I did my DraftKings video, which if you guys haven't checked out, make sure you do, because we were on fire last week and we're looking to do it again this week. I was on Maximoff against Robertson, just because of Robertson's tendency to lose on the ground. But now he's going up and he's facing a guy in Brundage who likes to wrestle as well. And some part of me thinks that maybe that wrestling's going to play into Maximov's ground game, because we've seen him perform at Submission Underground. We've seen him perform at grappling tournaments. But at the same time, I don't know why anyone would be laying minus 350, which is what the line opened at, right? So I do respect you to getting on there and getting on Brundage early, because he's now bet down to the point where Nick Maximoff is now minus 135 on my book, and he opened up at minus 350. So I'm going to lean Maximoff because of his abilities on the ground, but I'm not sold on the guy. I mean, we saw him in Contender Series fight a heavyweight, so good for you, but didn't prove to me the skills I wanted to see from him, right? So what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going to just go ahead and say it. He looked bad in that fight.
Yeah, he didn't. I'm going to
say that. I don't think he looked good at all. He was getting stuck underneath, taking bad shots against that heavyweight guy, and then he got stuck in the front headlock. If the big heavyweight guy had a brain, and I don't mean to be a jerk, I'm just saying, but he pulled himself underneath in a guillotine. He literally didn't have to give up that second round. He could have done exactly what he was doing for 2 minutes prior in the first round and kept his weight on the back of his head, and he probably would have finished him, honestly, because I didn't see an answer. He couldn't get out. He was stuck underneath in the front headlock, basic. I was like, what is this fight? And so now I think he's dropping down in weight here. I actually missed the weigh-ins today because I was working, so I'm going to go back and check those out. But, I'm curious to see what they all looked like at weigh-ins. Frankly, I'm concerned about, his gas tank maybe in this spot because of that. People don't always take into account, but when you cut a lot of weight, it just can change how your body feels when you try and perform, even if you have some time to get, water and whatever back in you. So, salute him. Hopefully he's got a good rehydration process and everything, but hopefully for my bet, he doesn't, because I got 1.5 units the other direction at plus 168. And I'm looking now, best fight odds, best price on Cody Brundage, plus 120. He is on Bet Online right now, minus 105. So I bet he's going to close as a favorite here. Because the public is probably going to chase that steam all the way down. It's already come this far. It looks like action's still coming in. So, when I made my notes for this fight, I have Maximov minus 110. And I think that's a fair indication. I think he was the guy who was already scheduled to be here. He's got the rub, he's got the team, whatever, but I'm not totally sold on him in this spot. I think that Brundage could keep it upright, and then it's anybody's fight. I think that this could have easily been a pick'em from open. And I think that the Roberson matchup was unique in that Roberson has a way that he loses fights, which is the way that the opponent meets his win condition. It's just that's the kind of matchup where even still, man, I know a lot of people that I respect that were on the other side there too, saying Roberson can't defend submissions against UFC level guys, but he's a UFC level guy who's probably going to boink this guy on the head. And I think that's, a live outcome. I think if Cody Brundage doesn't gas himself in this spot, he could definitely win this fight over the course of 15 minutes if he manages his energy. So I really hope to see that from him here. I'm going to back my wrestler. I like jiu-jitsu too, but I'm going to back a wrestler here because I think he could keep himself safe. I think he could bail if he needs to. I think he's probably going to be able to match him in the physicality department. I don't think he's as good a grappler, but I think if he fights a smart game plan and can spend some time on the feet, I think that this is going to be a very honest and competitive fight. And I think that plus 168 number is going to age well. So that's my hope. And, I'm sitting on that play, and I think that's one of my larger investments on the card. But, man, I was confident that line wasn't going to hang. He was already at plus 140 and plus 135 on Bet Online and Five Dimes. When I saw it on FanDuel at plus 168, I said, yoink, I got to take that to the bank. So that's my action on this fight, man. And I think that, if you took Brundage, anything plus 125 and above, I think you're gravy. If you cap him as the favorite, by all means. I didn't even watch Cody Brundage tape before I made this bet, guys, because this is just a must bet. It's like when you look at the slate, when you look at the board, and the smartest books are hanging a different number, and they opened it at minus 350, and now they're hanging something completely. It's like, guys, that's just the clearest indication in the world that sharp money is pushing that line the other way fast. That means people who the bookmaker respects are putting down limit bets on whatever they have available right now, and they're changing it live. So that's just one tip, one tool, one trick. When the market is saying this is a good bet massively, it's probably a good bet. Now, do your own research, act accordingly, but I'm just saying, I looked at that line and said, I'm going to take plus 168 because it's not going to exist tomorrow. And sometimes you could tell when that's going to be the case. And this one, I felt like it was pretty obvious. All the line movement was in one direction. So got in while the going was still good. There's got to be a certain point where the value switches, right? Like it does. This is a numbers game at a certain point, right? So it doesn't go on forever. We can't just bet Cody Brundage till he's minus 350 himself, right? So there's got to be a tipping point where the market will come back the other direction. I actually think that this is going to end up a dead pick'em. So if you want that plus money on Cody Brundage, maybe get it now. But I obviously would not be surprised to see some Maximov love come back, especially, I told you I capped this minus 110 Maximov when I looked at it myself. And I think that price is, minus 112 is right now available on the board, Five Dimes, minus 115 Bet Online. So yeah, like it's happening. It's going to be a pick'em.
Well, I do think that your ability to grab that big plus money number is where it's at. That's if you could get that, that'd be the optimal play. But I would not be betting Brundage at this line. I do think that Maximov was opened at minus 350 for a reason. I do think that he definitely does have a path to victory. I do think he's a better grappler, and it's not like Brundage blows me away on the feet either. I mean, he's a solid wrestler, and I'll give him that, but even at that, I mean, he does stick his head out there when he does shoot those takedowns. I mean, there's a lot of ways that Maximov can win. I would not put a lot of stock into that Contender Series win either. I mean, it was at heavyweight and just so many different things. But the big fear for me is Maximov's gas tank. So I think that if I am ever going to bet Maximov, which I don't plan on doing it, I would take him by submission because I do think that that's a big way he's going to be able to do it. We see him have a good ground game. He's be able to execute it in grappling tournaments. And I do think that where Brundage is a good wrestler and he's able to execute easy passes in the low-level competition. I mean, I watched tape on him and he was just able to fly right to, I think it was arm triangle sometimes, and it was just head and arm chokes, and he would just
that's the wrestler
right
choke,
away.
Baby.
Yeah, and it was just, he's not going to be able to do that on Maximov. So a lot of his wins are tough too, because we haven't really seen him extended that much either. He usually just walks through his opponents, which is tough. But then again, you look at Maximov, and that happens for him too. And when he finally was going up against adversity and a bigger guy in a Contender Series, he didn't look that impressive. So this is a fight for me that I called a pass. And when I say it, it's a pass for me. It's a pass in the betting market because I will be playing Maximov in DraftKings because I do think that his ceiling's a lot higher because he might be able to submit him. I mean, we saw Brundage stick his head in against William Knight, and William Knight just elbowed him to oblivion. Whereas I don't expect Maximov to do this. If he does stick his head in that deep, Maximov is a slick BJJ specialist, so you never know what's going to happen. But in terms of betting perspective, I'm going to stay out of it. I can see this going many different ways, but I do think the highest win probability for Maximov is on the ground. So that is why I will be playing him on DraftKings because he's got a low salary. And to be completely honest, I'm not as big on the dogs this week as you are. I know you got a lot of dogs this week. It's tough. It's tough. So
I got small exposure to a bunch of dogs this week. That is my
Okay.
biggest dog shot for sure, is 1.5 units at plus 168, Cody Brundage.
All right. Well, let's move right along to a fight that I really need your opinion on. But before we do, I'd like to take the chance to promote the fact that I'm doing a giveaway. I mean, I made some good money last weekend, so I'm just giving $25 back. We're doing a free entry DraftKings tournament. So whoever wants to make some free money, think you can challenge me in a DraftKings competition, go right for it. Just make sure to like my YouTube video on the channel and just comment your DraftKings username under that video, and I will send you an invite to the competition, and I will send out $25 to the winner. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Make sure you guys do that. Hopefully, maybe I'll convince Liam to try some DraftKings one week, and we'll get it going as well. But let's move right along, because this is a spot where I need your help with this one, because I've been waiting all week, and I'm ready to do it. Jalen Turner facing facing Uros Medic, and
Uros
Medic, Alaska FC fighter. I mean, we didn't see any tarantula today at the weigh-ins, unfortunately. There's a spoiler alert for you from Turner the tarantula. But no, they both looked good on the scales.
Dude, I thought you meant that he didn't show up to the effing weigh-in, and I was no.
No. He usually brings that tarantula on stage, right?
Yes.
And we saw people looking for it today, but no, they didn't bring that. But no, this is a spot where I'm waiting for it. And I know I see Dalton already going in there, going medic. And I don't know. You see the level of competition that Uros Medic is facing, and it's not very good. And I think that if you're going to lay plus money on someone with more experience, better ground game, in my opinion, and longer anthropomorphic advantages, then I might want to take a shot on it. And I've been waiting all week to take my shot on Jalen Turner, and I have not yet, simply because this is a card where it's very public. A lot of people will be putting money on it, and I'm waiting on those wiki cappers to see that perfect record and place a bet on him, and hopefully money goes in Medic's way. I'm able to get an even better price tag on Jalen Turner. I do think Jalen Turner is really, really live in this spot, not only with his reach, but also on the ground. We've never seen Uros Medic be extended into later rounds as well. There's so many things, and I'm just going to let you take over and hear what you got to say about it. What are your thoughts on this, my friend?
Well, buddy, in terms of like exposure to a dog, this is somebody that I have exposure to as a dog, but in a couple different ways, and I'll break that down. Now, I want to shout out my man Dalton in the chat, lighten us up. He's all over Medic here, and I've spoken to him about it. And so, I totally see the rationale, man. He's a dangerous guy, just no two ways about it. And one of the things I really like about him, his finishing instincts are good. So he gets after people. And if he sees that you're hurt, he's going to really try and just put the nail in the coffin. He's good at that. So got to give him all his credit and due respect. Like, the guy has shown good skills, even in the fights that he's had in Contender Series and the UFC. Are they over these world-beating opponents that are giving us all great confidence? No, but they are what you'd expect he'd do to that level of competition, right? It's a two-man game, right? So if like one guy can't stand up to pressure and big athletic heavy kicks, then it's just going to be over fast, because that's what he's bringing. So it's like, yeah, I do think that it's just a different matchup now, right? I think that this is a complete quality difference from the fighters that he was fighting before. And one of the things that I think is important to take a look at here, I'm going to click over to it myself and just look at what the odds were for Uros Medic in the fights that he won. So he's been favored in both of the fights that he won so far at the UFC-ish level, right? The Contender Series, which is now the UFC light, he was minus 145, right? Then he was minus 185 against Elon Cruz. Now he's fighting somebody significantly better, in my opinion, than both those guys. In Jalen Turner. And let's just by comparison look over at Jalen Turner, what he's been priced in his fights. He fights Brock Weaver, minus 500. He fights Josh Kulabau, minus 230. He fights Matt Frivola, which granted he lost that fight, minus 165. He fights Callan Potter, minus 220. So the market has been high on Jalen Turner. And now we're saying that we're off Jalen Turner, despite the fact that, he put away Brock Weaver, and honestly kind of like systematically broke down Brock Weaver, in my opinion. When I went back and rewatched that fight, Brock Weaver landed a handful of punches, but outside of that, I just felt like he got picked apart and mentally broken, physically broken by the better guy. And then the Josh Kulabau fight, everybody has hated on Josh Kulabau his whole UFC run, and he was obviously undersized for that fight. But I had Josh Kulabau against Charles Jourdain and got a draw. I believe I had him again when he won in the UFC. So it's like, I just think that the market's been too low on Josh Kulabau. I thought that was a decent enough win for Jalen Turner. And the Brock Weaver win doesn't mean a tremendous amount to me. The Matt Frevola fight is irrelevant to me in this spot because I don't think that Uros Medic is going to be shooting proactive takedowns in this spot. I think if anybody's going to do that, it would be Jalen Turner. And I think that Jalen Turner has a better ground game. This is a guy who's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This is a guy who's demonstrated a pretty decent set of well-rounded skills. I thought that was good finishing skills that he showed in the Brock Weaver fight. Took his back, pulled him, and then put the quick squeeze to him, got him out of there. So I think that he's shown well-rounded skills. He has a triangle choke win earlier in his career. Wasn't over great opponents, but still, even all the way back to Bellator 170 in 2017, finished Gabe Green. That's a UFC level win from Jalen Turner in 2017. So Jalen Turner's been around doing the thing. Took a couple losses early in his career, right? He's been knocked out a few times. That's obviously the concern here, right? I'm big on the fight doesn't go to decision. I don't think either way that this fight is going to see the scorecards. Uros Medic, like you said, he's never gone past 6 minutes. Jalen Turner, he doesn't see the scorecards either, man. This is a guy who's not getting paid by the hour. He's trying to get in and get out. And I think that this is going to be fireworks. I think you talked about you're waiting on a better line on Jalen Turner. I think there's going to be an even better entry on Jalen Turner live after round one, if it's very competitive or if he loses. And I think that at that point, I might be hammering Jalen Turner. So just to be upfront, I got action a few different ways on this fight. I got 0.92 units at plus 108, Jalen Turner on the money line. And I locked that in because it's been the best available for a while. So if I end up adding to that, that's fine. If it goes out to a wider line, but right now, that's the amount of exposure I'm comfortable with, 0.92 units to win a unit at plus 108. And then I also have, Jalen Turner wins by submission. I have 0.5 units on it because I have I put 0.25 down at plus 700. And then I see that, you can get plus 900 elsewhere. And I was like, I don't know that that's going to last. So I put down another 0.25 units at plus 900. I hear what Hunter's saying as well, that Brock was never going to win a fight in the UFC. Yeah, and the UFC made sure of that by giving him Jalen Turner because they wanted to give that guy the door. I guarantee that. So I think that the UFC has been high on Jalen Turner too. Keep in mind, guys, yeah, he has a knockout loss in the UFC to Vicente Luque, who everyone has a knockout loss to, not named Wonderboy Thompson. It's like this guy is like a stud. I really think highly of Jalen Turner. I think he could actually make a run here if he can shore up some of those deficiencies. But honestly, Matt Frevola, if he doesn't get nuked, is like a pretty good pressure wrestler that has beaten a bunch of guys that he wasn't supposed to beat. It's just when he gets touched on the chin, it's all over fast. So, I think Frevola is kind of like a difficult guy to get a read on as a result. I think he gets underrated in some spots and then overrated back and forth. But man, this to me just stands out as a fight where I also have to touch 0.1 units. Jalen Turner, round 3, plus 1,500. And I don't even think Jalen Turner has the world's greatest cardio, but there is no reason to believe that Uros Medic is going to be able to go for 15 minutes. And that's in part because he has a very labor-intensive style. He's throwing a ton of kicks. He's throwing a ton of like sprinting maneuvers. Like he's just moving all over the place. He's erratic in what he's doing. I'm not to say it's not effective, right? But also I'm going to just go back to the fact that he went in the fights that he had on the regional scene, 1-4 opponent. He got taken down for 3 minutes of top control against the cage. That was an embarrassingly bad look. He was playing off his back the whole round. That's not good fight IQ. And it could get him finished in the UFC if he hasn't shorn that up. Now, do I expect improvements from him? Of course I do. I think he's actually, he's shown zero evidence of gassing because he's never gone past 6 minutes. So So what's your confidence in laying money stating that he will be able to go that far? That would be my counterpoint. I have evidence that Jalen Turner can win fights in the second and third round deeper than 6 minutes. I would ask you, what evidence would you put forward on your side? That's the only thing. And I'm not playing somebody at favorite odds. I'm playing them at dog odds. I'm playing them to win in round 3 at plus 1,500, right? So we're not saying that this is a lock of the night play. We're saying, where do we assess value? I assess value on Jalen Turner as an underdog. I think Jalen Turner's proven more. I think he's beaten a better level of competition, broadly speaking. And I think, Alon Cruz is a pretty decent win. I think that if you're on Medic in round 1, I think that's a fair bet. I think target is his maximal win condition. I think that more often than not, if he wins this fight, he wins it in the very first round. That's been the story of his career. Maybe he could win it in the first 6 minutes. Maybe he can win it in the first 7. Maybe he comes out here and has a perfect 15 minutes of cardio, and then we learn, can't fade this guy. But we've never seen that from him. And so we're playing with a market of unknowns. The unknowns should push this to at least 50-50. And if not 50-50, I think Jalen Turner has proven more. So at that point, it's got to be, for me, the only other exposure I have, 2 units. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 175. And I think that's pretty good in either direction. Both of these guys are going to come after each other. Both of these guys proven finishers. So let's see who's able to get the job done. I just think when you're a big southpaw who's been exploiting a bunch of cans, and let's be fair about a lot of those opponents. A lot of those opponents were cans, on the regional scene especially. Then I think, man, it could be a wake-up call here. How does he respond to adversity? We don't know. Even that fight where he was taken down and controlled, the guy just wasn't doing damage from on top, his opponent, because he was honestly a little scared and trying to hold on, it seemed like. He just didn't want to be in the striking fight anymore, which who could blame him? He was getting assaulted. And Uros Medic, dangerous guy, but he's fighting another big, tall, long southpaw here. This is a tricky fight. So if you guys have confidence in your boy Uros, I understand. But I am not going to have confidence in an Alaska FC fighter that's never been past 6.5 minutes, that doesn't have, these tremendous wins that I can bank on as evidence that he is like transcendent talent. I think he could turn into something very special. We'll have to wait and see. Right now, I'm willing to stand against him, and I'm willing to stand against the market if they're saying that he should be favored.
You know what? You covered all the bases there. I think that the biggest path to victory for Medic is going to be using his killer instinct and getting him out of there in round 1. So he's going to be a good GPP play on DraftKings. And my boy Luke here is asking for the insight. My insight here is that if you can get a good plus money line on Jalen Turner after round 1, that's what you got to do. Because whereas I do see where Dalton's coming from, that he's never had the ability to, his style is so energy consuming to the point where he's not going to be able to keep that up for 3 rounds. And with the level of competition he's fighting, he's not going to need that cardio because he knows to be able to put him out there early. I think that everyone's looking past Jalen Turner, but Jalen Turner has a lot of advantage in this fight, both anthropomorphic and skill-wise on the ground. I think that if it's a distance fight as well, I think Jalen Turner might be able to outpoint him from range. He's a longer fighter. So I think that if Uros Medic wants to win this fight, he's going to blitz in, he's going to go hungry for that kill, and he's going to go out there and expend a lot of energy doing that. And if Jalen Turner is able to survive and you're able to get good plus money on him live, that's the way to go. And whereas I do think Medic is going to be a good prospect and his resume on paper, 7-0, is looking great, I hope everybody else sees that too. Because if everyone's going to come fly to the window betting 7-0 fighters on come fight day and I can get plus 115 on Jalen Turner, I will not hesitate to pull the trigger. Currently, the best lines I'm seeing are like plus 108, like you've got plus 105. I would like a bit more because I am scared of Uros Medic as a fighter. I do think he's got a lot of skill. But I do think you can't look past Jalen Turner. I mean, he's got a great ground game. He's got good anthropomorphic advantages and able to use that range. And I think that he also has a level of experience edge here too. So a lot of things going in the way of Jalen Turner. I do think that the doesn't go to decision is a great line as well. I could parlay that with all the parlay pieces you got going this week. But other than that, there's a bit of unknowns with that unproven fighter. So maybe I just sit back and take stock of what's going to happen. And I'm able to take notes and adapt from there. But
I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting back and watching that fight for further betting information. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to take the value, in my opinion, on Turner, but I think especially as this line continues to close, man, if it gets to pick him, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, and what we're saying here is the fight doesn't go to decision is probably the better play here. I mean, both guys have been finished, and Uros Medic has only been through the first 7 minutes of the fight. So that is probably the great play there. That is probably the better play there. And honestly, if you're going to be playing Jalen Turner like I am at plus odds, why shouldn't I take the plus money side? If you're betting Uros Medic, why don't you just take inside the distance? Because that's probably where it's going to go. That is probably the better play in my opinion. But I'm not going to risk it because actually that's exactly what I was thinking. The Alan Soriano fight, I got burned. I took that fight to go to decision because you got two killers and look what happened to me. Right. So I do think that it's going to be a great fight. I'm excited to take stock in it. I'm excited to watch it. I will be having some Jalen Turner on DraftKings no matter what. And depending on what line I get on Saturday, that was going to depend if I have some money on it or not. So great breakdown there. I'm really looking forward to that fight and let's keep her rolling. We got, a good one coming up. Taylor Santos, 17-1 versus Roxanne Modafferi, 25-18. She's going to become the fighter with the most women's fight in history. I think it's the record she's breaking. And I mean, I love Roxy. She's a very good personality, and I think that she's a good fighter as well. She just lacks that athletic ability, but she's facing someone in Taylor Santos who I think is just a bit above her ability to play the dog and the ability to do that. The problem I have here is the only way, in my opinion, that Taylor Santos loses this fight is if she gets wet blanketed and gets covered and gets taken down and controlled on top by Roxanne Modafferi. Luckily for me, I do not think that's happening, and I'm going to take a shot on Taylor Santos. Here's the parlay piece. What are your thoughts on it?
I did the same. So I have Taylor Santos in one of my parlays. So she wasn't, if you were to use Cody Saftik's terms, not top ticket. But she was, somebody that I was willing to, I have a women's parlay, Jessica Andraj, Talia Santos, and Valentina Shevchenko. So that was where I ended up putting it down 2 units at minus 108 odds. And we'll have to see how that plays, man. I think my most concern is on the Andraj fight. I think that Santos should roll here from a physical standpoint. I think it's going to be tougher and tougher for Roxy to keep pulling off miracles as she gets older and older. I think she came off a surgery here in this spot. So that for me is a red flag. Older fighter coming off a surgery, don't like it. From a betting standpoint, the UFC keeps rebooking this fight. I believe this fight was canceled a couple times, pushed back. I got to double check that, but if that's true, that would also indicate to me that they really want this fight for her. And it just seems like kind of a perfect opportunity, if you will. Like, I think Molly McCann would have liked to get some takedowns. I think freaking Jillian Robertson would have liked to get more takedowns and hold top position. And Talia Santos won those fights. And those are younger, probably more athletic women than Roxy. Now, Roxy probably has better positional grappling than they do. But again, if you're in the grappling room, you see that it's not only and always about skill, it's also about when and where people are at. And, I do think that Talia Santos on physicality, strength, could stay on top here in pretty dominant positions without being all that technical. Although, I think my only concern is just that it's I heard somebody use the expression, it's like a race to the top position. And I do think that if Talia Santos is in top position, I don't think she's likely to get reversed or submitted. I do think she's probably going to be able to hold on from top and land some pretty good shots and ride out the fight. But it also just makes me a little concerned to put herself in that position the whole fight. And if she's not putting herself in that position, it'll give Rocky some more opportunity. So it for me is should be an easy win for Talia Santos, but the haunting memories of the Barella fight are always in our mind, my friend.
Yeah, and I mean Dalton's right here. Roxanne is an underdog and has always been an underdog in certain fights, and she's busted some parlays, and she's done a good job at that. Another thing to add too is there was a lot of people saying that Santos did not look good at weigh-ins. I agree with Hunter here. I think she was okay. I don't think that she was one of those points where I want to cash out my bet, because I do have a parlay with her. I bet her with the Carolina Panthers, who played yesterday. You know me, I love my NFL and UFC parlay, so I bet them, and then another fighter, which I'll mention later as well. So when it comes down to this fight from a DraftKings perspective, as Christian is mentioning right here, this is most likely going to go to the judges' scorecards, and this is not what we like to see. When we're playing DraftKings, especially on a 14-card slate, we want those fights we're going to finish, we want those ones we're going to be able to accumulate damage, and it's not like I see Talia Santos going in there and doing takedown after takedown after takedown, which is also a good way to score points, and it's not like I see her putting away on the feet, so it's a tough one. I think that Roxanne Modafferi is going to have a higher floor than a lot of other people in terms of getting like maybe 20, 30 points, whereas someone like a Sano can get knocked out within the first minute and get none, right? So I do think that it does go the distance. I do think that Modafferi is able to get a few punches in and a few scores, but it's going to be tough for her to get anywhere near the maximal lineup. So I will be staying away from this fight from a drafting perspective, especially when around the Talia Santos price, you have someone like Valentina Shevchenko up top, who, whereas I see a lot of people say is not going to finish, she does have a lot more of a chance to finish. She has 5 rounds to operate, and she has a lot of time to do that as well. So this is Santos all day. I think she gets it done, and I'm confident in it. And hopefully Roxy doesn't burn me, because, I mean, I do. Well,
I would say this, man. A lot of people have had that experience, but maybe that's why I feel a little more comfortable here. The only other time that I faded Roxy ever was I had a parlay on Viviane Arujao. So I like these Brazilians. I like their doctors. I like everything about them. And I think that, Talia Santos for me is the side this weekend. But, who could ever count out Roxy? That's why I don't have a straight play on her here. I wanted to, maximize my betting volume on those fights where I felt confident. That's why I parlayed it up. But also, I don't want to risk 2 units on Valentina, 2 units on Jessica Andraj, 2 units on Talia Santos. No. Let's take all the risks together. I'm a big boy. I want to see all those fights come out for me. Willing to put up the 2 units that they're all going to come through. And, for -108 odds, I don't hate it. I also want to just make the point before we get off this fight. I played it at -335. -400 is the best market price now. That is actually where I cap this. So I would no longer touch this, even in a parlay. I just felt like, let me extract a little bit of value here. I think that there's still some juice to be squeezed from this line. Got in a little bit early. That's a multi-event type parlay planning a couple weeks out. I wouldn't necessarily just week of an event start putting people in these parlays. I really try and be thoughtful about it in advance if I'm going to do that, because these parlays are tricky, man. You don't want to get suckered into the narrative of the week. You want to make sure that this is somebody, before everybody's talking about this fight card, that you feel confident about. I think that that's an important way to target those.
Yeah, and I mean, I see a lot of people parlaying Talia Santos, and I think that she is one of the better parlay pieces this week. However,
I agree.
Someone on the next fight, I've seen a lot of people parlaying Chris Dawkis. And let's talk about that. When we have Chris Dawkis 11-3 versus Shamil Abdurakimov at 20-5. All right. I think that people are really, really overvaluing Chris Dawkis here. Okay? Let me explain why. All right? First of all, I've never been a big fan of the Dawkis brothers. Well, this one specifically, but he does look shredded. I'll give him that. He looks really good in his Instagram posts, and he looks like he's ready to come and fight. Look good at weigh-ins today as well. But you have a guy in Shamil who I think has a lot of potential in the division. When you're playing someone like Chris Dawkis up to, where's the best market value from him now? Because I saw -200. Yeah, -225s, -205, -210. I think you're really discrediting how good Shamil actually can be, because whereas I do think Chris Dawkis does get the win here, I don't think it's a certain thing. It's a lot more places on this card where I'd rather have my money and rather lock in parlays, because Chris Dawkis has some crisp blocks. He has one of the fastest hands at heavyweight. I'll give him that. But it's not like we've seen a lot of things he can do. We haven't seen a lot of things that Shamil's going to put him through. We haven't seen him being tested very much. And it's not someone who had won a parlay over someone like the likes of Talia Santos, for example. So I want to know, do you have a parlay with Mr. Chris Dawkis this weekend?
Yes, I do.
No.
Although I'll tell you this, brother. I'll tell you this. Let me walk you to the ledge and then let me walk you back.
Okay.
It was a multi-event that I put in well back in advance. And it was on Manon Firo. So this is now pushed.
Okay.
And did I think about cashing out that parlay now that she's gone? I certainly did, because I do have 1.75 units staked on the money line on Chris Dawkis at -175. So here's the deal, man. Would I touch it at the current price? No, I would not, right? Because he's up to -225 in that market wide. And that's basically where I put this at. And, I do think it's hard to start getting much more aggressive than that, capping these heavyweight fights, because heavyweight's a pretty high variance spot. All that being said, one of the better weight classes for me in terms of picking fights is heavyweight. Heavyweight, light heavyweight, flyweight. I'm weird. I could pick these freaks. I could pick people at opposite ends of the size spectrum. But the fights between the best fighters in the world, 135 to 155, they're the hardest to predict for me. So that is something I take into account even when I'm capping these fights out. And Chris Dawkis, talking about past bets, man. Let me read off a couple of these. Chris Dawkis, 0.5 units at +220 versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Chris Dawkis versus Alexei Olenek, 3 units between -180 and -160. Also had him in round 1 in that spot. Also had him by knockout in that spot. And do I think that was much more of a give me? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was like, talk about free money. I really felt like that was free money. And when the line moved against me there, I was stunned and had to go back and put down more at -160. I was stunned. And, I think the market can't make up its mind about whether Chris Dawkis is the next Tom Aspinall and should be -300 and, whatever in his fights like Tom Aspinall, which, again, I still think is a little bit wild because of the weight class, because of the variance, because of the craziness. But, I think that they're similar in a way. Tom has been finished in the past. He's looked a little shaky on the regional, but the signs that he could be good were always there. The things to like were always there. Go back and watch Chris Dawkis' old fights. He was like a fat, out-of-shape cop who was just boxing people's ears off because he's got fast hands, and he hits hard, man. People don't like to get touched by those hands. And he can overwhelm somebody fast. Parker Porter, one of the tougher guys that we've seen emerge now in this heavyweight division, who could take a beating and keep coming forward, and who can walk somebody down, who can wear them down with volume. Nah, Chris said, hold these hands and beat the shit out of them. Now, granted, that fight was on short notice, but that's probably Chris's best win in the UFC. I'll grant Rodrigo Nascimento was not good, and I only regret that I didn't spend more money fading him at the time. And I know a lot of people tried with this most recent guy and came up short. But, Chris Dawkis, for me, he's got some of the fastest hands in the division. Physically, he looks absolutely transformed. I would not be surprised at all if his cardio has made significant improvements. Man, it's hard to move around a bunch of weight like that, especially real fast and athletic-like. And he was trying to do real fast, athletic-like movements, light on the feet, moving in and out, whatever, head faking and whatever. He's a heavyweight trying to do all those things with, that little beer gut hanging off. Now he doesn't look like that. Now he looks like an athlete. Now he looks like a guy who is a professional athlete. And he kind of reminds me of Tanner Boser if Tanner Boser threw hands, and Tanner Boser moves around. But if you could criticize him, sometimes he just gets a little too obsessed with the kicks and he starts throwing them and he lands a lot of them and he feels good about it, but he forgets that it's a fight and you got to convince people you're winning. You got to land these shots. Chris Dawkis is not going to forget about the hands, my man. He is a dangerous guy. I think he's going to put hands on Shamil. Shamil's 40, and he's coming in here off 2 years off. That for me is just a big red flag, man, because it's the kind of fight where you can get caught cold in a return And if anybody's going to catch you cold, man, Chris Dawkis comes out. He does not come out to play. He comes out throwing hands fast right off the opening bell. And I think he could knock Shamil out in the very first round, man. I have the money on the money line. I also have 0.41 units, Dawkis round 1 knockout at plus 370. And I have 0.35, I believe, on Dawkis round 1 and 2 at plus 155. I think Dawkis is going to knock him out early. That being said, I think at this point, the money line value has probably shifted to Shamil. And I do think that I often talk about the hinge point. If you've heard about me or if you've heard me break down these fights before, you maybe heard me say it. I like to think of the line at which I would consider playing the underdog, the line at which I'd consider playing the favorite. And, I think if you're getting above plus 185 on Shamil, that's an interesting bet. That starts to be, it's like I'm getting a good heavyweight, a heavyweight with some skills at this plus number. But I also just hate having my money out there on 40-year-olds that get touched one time on the chin and just off switch. It is statistically significant, guys. Over 38 years old, people get knocked out way, way more frequently. And heavyweight, people already get knocked out. People get knocked out that are young, healthy men that have never been knocked out before with one touch on the chin. So you're telling me the 40-year-old guy who hasn't been to work in a long time because he keeps getting hurt because he can't show up? I don't think the UFC wants him to win this fight, man. I don't think that they're high on him as a prospect at 40 years old. I think that they want Dawkis here. I think that Dawkis is the side. But I also see what you're saying, man. I do think it's a heavyweight fight. If you're laying over minus 200 in a heavyweight fight, you got to have a really, really good reason. And I don't see that here. You're going to hear me talk later in the card. I'm not just talking about this fight, just heavyweights broadly. I don't believe in that. I think it's just so dangerous. Need a reminder, look at the Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis fight. Curtis Blades is way better than Derek Lewis in every position, guys, and he got slept absolutely brutally. It was one of the hardest to watch. If you placed money on Curtis on the money line, I feel so bad for you. I only had like 1 unit of exposure, Curtis ITD, and I was freaking devastated. So it's a high variance sport, and it's a high variance weight class. Approach accordingly. I think Chris Dawkis knocks him out in the first round.
I respect all that. I think you did a very good breakdown of doing it there. The thing is, I don't know. I'm not sold on Chris Dawkis. It is another one of those fights where I sit back, enjoy, and I look at it because I do think he has great hands, and the way he's looking right now on weigh-ins and the way he's transformed himself is really impressive. And I do gotta give him that. This is one of the ones where though we keep seeing this fight rebooked. We want to see it happen for a reason. So it looks like Chris Dawkis might be the side. I just haven't seen enough from him. He hasn't faced the same level of competition. This is a step up. And it's not someone I want to parlay over the likes of like Italia Santos. I mean, it is a big price tag we're getting there. And there's a lot of other spots where I'd rather put my money on. So I think I'm just going to sit back. I'll probably play some Chris Dawkis on DraftKings because he should finish here. We've seen Shamil be finished before. So just before actually, no, I'll keep that one for later. Anyways, I agree. I think that his boxing is insanely fast. We got to give him that. Speed kills. Say it all the time here. What's up, Gramps? How you doing,
I'm with
buddy?
you, Gramps. Me and Gramps talked about this. I'm right there with you, Gramps.
So it's a tough one. I am going to side with Dawkis here, but I would not be playing him at minus 200. I think if you want to parlay someone, there's a lot of other good parlay pieces out there.
For sure.
So,
and I did not go back to the well with him in any parlays, by the way. The only other action I have on this fight, I just wanted to mention briefly, was I have a fight doesn't go to decision, parlay bonanza. And this is one of those, Shamil, Uros Medic, Jalen Turner, and one other fight, are going to be my fight doesn't go to decision violence extravaganza. And I think that very unlikely that this sees the scorecards. When we've seen Chris lose, he has been finished. He's been submitted before. I do think that people, because they haven't seen it, think that Chris probably doesn't have a ground game. I don't think that's true. That's what gave me increased confidence in the Alexei Olenek fight. If you go back and rewatch that fight, he was very smart about when he needed to break the clinch there. And so I do think there is some things to like, but I also think the biggest red flag, guys, and I say this as somebody who's all over Chris Dawkis, Shamil has never been knocked down on the feet. Just never been knocked down on the feet, has been finished on the ground by every opponent that's beaten him. So, maybe we see Chris get on top of him here. I wouldn't expect that, but I think Chris could drop him, finish from the top position. I think Chris is going to be a lot to handle for a lot of guys, man. I do rate Chris pretty highly for these heavyweight prospects, but I also want to see how he does, when we get him in there with one of these younger guys, when he gets in there with one of those more capable guys. That's when I'm probably going to take a step back, wait and see, watch the fight. But I really have been having a field day fading old fighters. I'm going to have to try and go back to the well here. I heard Hunter say that it's, not a big deal at heavyweight. That's fair. That's definitely fair. But it's also the fact that it could get his lights shut off. 40 and heavyweight go together, but also heavyweight's getting knocked out is not uncommon. It's like part of the division. So I think all that together, yeah, it adds up to Chris Dawkis should probably win by knockout. But if you're betting minus, if you're betting 70% and above implied on heavyweights, you're just asking for heartbreak. So that's all I'll leave it with.
I think this is a great DraftKings play, but I'm excited to take stock and see how it goes. No play for me yet, but you know what? You did a good job breaking it down, so you never know where we end up. Let's move right along. The next one on, this is a good one right here. Dan Hooker, 20-10 versus Nasrat Haqparast at 13-3. And first off, hats off to both of them for making weight. Both of them got their visas literally this week, flew in, cut weight, maybe on the plane, and that's impressive. I mean, also a big shout out to Nasrat. I hope he's doing okay. We have to address the fact that he did just lose his mom. So I feel sorry for him, and my thoughts are with him and his family. But at the same time, does that impact how you're going to be seeing this fight at all? I mean, if you look at the most recent fights, Dan Hooker's lost to the elite of the elite at this division. Granted, he was knocked out cold against Michael Chandler. Not a good look there. And then you look at someone Nasrat Haqparast, who has looked really good. He's had some really good hands recently. I know you got in there early. You got a good line on Nasrat Haqparast. What are your thoughts on this one?
Man, I got in on Nasrat early here. So I hit Nasrat for 1 unit at plus 162. And, again, I don't care if I lose my bets, guys. I just got to be upfront and honest about that, because I'm not just trying to win every bet. I plan on betting on the next event, whether I win or lose on this one, right? So if that's the case, then what I'm looking for ultimately is good lines. I'm looking for valuable lines, and I'm looking to try and find exploitable opportunities. And, if you look right now, Nasrat Haqparast, best available price is plus 135. And I actually think that this price would have stayed closer had it not been for the travel conundrums on both sides of the matchup here, right? We've got, on the one hand, Nasrat dealing with the loss of his mother. He's dealing with the fact that he had to cut weight on short notice at the airport and whatever else, just probably had a hellish week. But, Dan Hooker dealt with a lot of those same things, obviously not the loss of his mother. That's tragic. But Dan Hooker dealing with some family stuff, dealing with some isolation, dealing with all the COVID restrictions in New Zealand, probably just hasn't had the easiest time training and preparing for this fight. Looked exceptionally good, by the way. I haven't seen all the weigh-ins. I did scroll past a picture of Dan Hooker looking in phenomenal condition on the scale. So I'll point out that Nasrat looked phenomenal on the scale as well. Made the weight class. I was expecting him to miss, frankly. Based on all that we knew this week, I was expecting him to miss. This should be a banger. I think that both of these guys are capable of winning the fight. For me, plus 162 was enough for me to say I'm not convinced that Dan Hooker is going to be able to have a nice bounce back here. I hope for his sake he is able to. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's got good skills. But I was big on him in the Michael Chandler fight, and I was stunned by that outcome. I really was. Obviously Michael Chandler live, right? And I've just had a tough time picking Michael Chandler fights, right? I was on him when he lost. I was off him when he won. So it's tough for me. looking at that fight retrospectively. But yeah, I think I was 3 units deep on Dan Hooker that night because I thought his style played in perfectly. I was like, he's going to intercept him with the knees. He's going to be able to hit him with the hooks. But he just showed an inability to fight off the back foot. He showed an inability to deal with pressure. And, you know, I was honestly thinking that Dan Hooker might submit Michael Chandler. He's got a nasty guillotine. And I was like, man, this guy going to come in here pretty reckless. Like, I thought he could hurt Chandler with a knee and club and sub him. I thought that he was the more proven fighter. I was like, man, coming off these Poirier fights or whatever. I just thought then, as soon as I watched it, I was like, is he shot now? And I don't know that is something that we should, I don't like playing that prediction game either. But for me, his chin is a little bit of a concern, man. Absorbed a ton of damage, just like war after war, face-altering beating after face-altering beating. And this is a guy who talked about retirement. I believe after his last fight, took off the gloves and everything. And then he says, I realized there's nothing else I'm good at, which is actually like not as funny a joke as you think. Like that's that was a little sad actually. And that's why I hope he's taking the fight for the right reasons. It looks like he is, looks like he's all in, looks like he's back here hungry as a competitor, wants to be here. But when you start the retirement talk, when I have concerns about the chin, and when I think it's probably going to be a somewhat competitive striking battle, I think that Dan Hooker could take him out here. Like he's a dangerous guy. He's a powerful guy. But if he doesn't, I think Nasrat by decision was a little sneaky. I think people have probably touched that already. I haven't looked at the price, but so much money's come in on him already. Let's look at that now. Hack press by decision is plus 350. Yeah, so I think that Nasrat by KO or decision is how I feel like he is most live to win this fight. I think Dan Hooker, if he chooses to wrestle in this fight, could look a little better. He's shown a pretty impressive takedown game while completely death gassed in more than one fight. The Felder fight comes to mind. Where he's able to just get these like body lock takedowns off double leg entries and stuff. Like he's just not bad, and he's got big leverage on his frame. So I think that should be a competitive fight. I favor Dan here, and I think he's probably going to get back on track. I hope for Nasrat's sake he doesn't get finished again because that would be a bad look. But with all the emotional baggage and everything he's got coming in, who could blame him? I'm going to root for both these guys. I hope that they do well. But I got my man Nasrat early, so far sitting on 30 points on the closing line. And that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to extract that closing line value, baby.
Well, first things first, I'm going to pat myself on the back for betting Michael Chandler last time he fought Hooker. But then we're going to move on. I think that this is going to be a great fight. I did have to question Hooker's durability when I did my DraftKings video. Speaking of which, make sure you comment your DraftKings username on it if you want to win some free money. All right. And yeah, it's just one of those spots where you don't know. He's been in some wars and it's just going to be tough. But I do think that this is a huge step up for Nasrat. I do think he's looked good recently. Nasrat has looked like he's got some amazing hands, great boxing. But we don't know how he's going to fare against not only that, the style that the Hangman brings, but also the level of competition too. Like he's going to look good beating up Rafa Garcias, but so did whoever starched him last time out, right? Or didn't starch him, but broke a lot of everyone.
The grits,
the grits, yeah, Grootsmack. So it's tough to see because you don't know. I mean, Nasrat took a step up, got knocked out by Dober. He's been knocked out before, and this is just one where I'm going to sit back and enjoy because you got two prospects, two really good. Well, I don't know if they're prospects, but two really good fighters, two contenders in the division, and you don't know where it's going to go. I mean, I also got to point out that it's going to be a step down, in my opinion, for Hooker. I mean, going from Chandler, Poirier, all this stuff. So you don't know where you're going to be. I am going to edge Hooker here just based on level of experience, but I would not be surprised. And on a card like this, where I don't like many of the underdogs, maybe some Nasrat play on DraftKings at 7.5. I mean, I think that if he is going to win this fight, he's going to put out a lot of volume and he's going to be able to do a good job of it. It's just not something I really want to bank on. He won't be in any of my cash lineups. He's more of a GPP play. But yeah, I think that he's not going to bring the same style that Michael Chandler did. Nasrat Haqparast is not Michael Chandler. So I think that Dan Hooker should be able to go back to his roots here. So if the line wants to keep coming in, if I can get a good line on Dan Hooker, I'll be more than happy to take it. All right, moving right along, and this is where things start get a little bit tricky.
I was just going to leave off Hooker inside the distance plus 220.
It's a good line.
I don't think that that's a bad look, and I'm on Nasrat. So I think Nasrat above plus 150 was a good play, and I think Hooker inside the distance is a good play.
There you go. I like that. All right. Well, we move right along to, you know what? This is one of these fights where we need a little bit of ASMR here. Okay, this is a big one for me. We got Marlon Moraes 23-8-1 against Merab Dvalishvili sitting at 13-4, and this was one of the first 5-unit bets on the Gordo Gambles channel. I went ahead and parlayed Mr. Merab Dvalishvili with Jack Shore, who fought a couple weeks ago, and I've had this locked in for like a month now. I've been ready, dying to watch this fight. I just think that Merab Dvalishvili is going to go out here and he's going to just absolutely make Marlon Moraes hate his life. And you look at Marlon Moraes' past fights, I mean, he does quit. He has shown to slow down later in fights. Granted, he has been fighting a great level of competition, but he's lost a lot in a row now. He hasn't been looking great. He's not like he's some next level ground artist. The only fear I have is going to be if Marlon Moraes is able to just catch him on an entry early in the rounds. I don't think he's able to do that in round 2 or 3, so maybe I'll hedge off with that round 1 sprinkle on Moraes. But I think that Merab Dvalishvili is going to make him quit once again. I do think that he's going to land takedown after takedown, wearing this guy's gas tank, and just break him. That's what Merab does. His name is The Machine, and I think he's going to go out there and just be an absolute machine on Saturday. I'm super pumped for it. I'm really happy with the spot I got in it because I almost have plus money on this guy with a huge bet. So I'll be sweating this one out. I will have another drink in hand, and if it doesn't go my way, well then we'll have to go back to the drawing board. But I think that he's better in a lot of areas here. He has a game plan and he sticks to it. Merab Dvalishvili is really good at what he does, and he knows that. He has cardio for days, and he's able to go out there and put a pace on someone that Marlon Moraes is never going to be able to keep up with. So unless he's going to flying knee KO him on an entry, which I'm not going to let doesn't happen, I do think this is Merab Dvalishvili all day. What are your thoughts on it?
I tend to agree with you, brother. And, I did actually lock in a hedge that I thought was I thought it was a no-brainer. I put in, I'll tell you the hedge first because I'm so proud of it. 0.25 units at plus 550. Moraes wins in round 1 or 2. Because I've heard everybody say that he's going to win, in the first round or not at all. And I do think that is very, very possible. But what is to stop him from landing the first knee of the second round? It's like, guys, just don't slip on the banana peel when we can get 5 more minutes at this insane plus number as well. That's at least how I felt. But I hear what you're saying. That's only if you have access to FanDuel. I think that you could play that. So that was where I decided to look. If you could find a Moraes round 1 or 2, and you could get that same kind of plus money figure, I don't think that that's bad at all. And, otherwise, I'm on Merab, 1.35 units, KO or decision at minus 135. And I think it's pretty unlikely he's going to submit Marlon because Marlon has good fundamental jiu-jitsu skills. But, I do also think that it's not outside the realm of possibility that he could finish him here. Merab's a pretty strong guy. I don't think he hits like a truck by any means. He can move forward and throw with volume, but he's obviously not taking people out with the punches he's thrown so far in the UFC. He's thrown a lot of them. He's taken a lot of people down. But I think Marlon's chin is deteriorating, man. Like it was only a handful of jabs from Rob Font, who admittedly has a very hard jab. But it was like one jab that didn't look all that hard. And it looks like he's in headlights. It looks like his life's flashing before his eyes when he gets hit by the first punch in that fight. So it's just, for me, a really big red flag. Kind of set himself up for failure too. He's taken a couple bad, devastating losses in a row now. And that for me is a big concern. The Cejudo fight, I really thought took away a lot of his confidence. I don't think he's looked the same ever since. he was on that streak. He felt like he was magic. He felt like I'm just this guy who's going to kill everybody in the first round. And when somebody was still there in round 2, he was mentally broken by it. And he was ready to quit on the stool in between rounds, like Gordo mentioned. And I don't ever want to doubt the heart and toughness of these guys, but Marlon's been there, done that. He was a world champion in other organizations. He kind of sniffed the chance in the UFC, and he's now seeing that there's a generation of talent between him and the title. And so he's going to try and fight for it. He's going to try and scratch and claw that back because right now, like, the division's on the verge of moving on for Marlon Moraes. And that's how I see this fight, man. I think Marlon is like fighting for relevancy here to stay part of this picture. And I think he's alive to win. That's why I have that hedge. I don't think Marlon's a bad fighter, but I do think it's getting harder and harder to trust him. I had him in I'm drawing a blank. The Colorado guy. He's a good fighter. I bet him before, bet him again since. Corey Sandhagen. Thank you. Corey Sandhagen. Yeah, man. I had him in that fight as a dog because I was kind of, I was like, man, everybody in the public's so high on this kid. Marlon's still here. He's still a vet. He's still got some savvy. And it was a small bet, but I was so devastated by that performance too, man. Like, Corey was just, like making fun of him and like walking him down with impunity. It's just a bad look, man. The takedowns looked like they gassed him instantly. So, Hunter saying that he's been wrestling extensively with Danny Sabatello. So I find that interesting, but I also, it's one thing to do it with a training partner who's not trying to hurt you. And it's a way different thing. And Danny Sabatello has been accused of not trying to hurt people, even in the MMA fights, guys, to be fair. And I like Danny. And I think he's doing a lot of the right things. I think he's going to continue to upset people when he holds them and they can't move for 15 minutes. But I do think that Merab isn't just going to hold you in stationary positions for 15 minutes. He's going to elevate you, slam you, start punching, let you stand up, elevate you, slam you. And I do think that that's really difficult for somebody who will break. It's like one of the most frustrating things in wrestling, guys, is just being mat return, just getting picked back up after I did all this hard work to get to my feet. And now I'm right back where I started on hands and knees and, eating mat again. It's like, that's just such a bad feeling. And unless Marlon is able to, really stop all these takedown attempts early and force Merab into like a range kickboxing match where he's the most fresh, I do think it's going to be an uphill battle for Marlon. So I understand the price. And, I do think if Merab makes it out of round 1, he's probably going to be a minus 500 on the money line. So, you could either get in now while the going's good or, you're going to have to wait and see. Marlon could get that first round finish. And I'm thinking, we lost our man Gordo for a minute, but I'll hold down the fort in his absence, guys. I don't have a tremendous amount of confidence to lay any more wood there. I did not put down a tremendous bet on Merab. I did not touch him on the money line here, but I was willing to take that stab. And I also have a 0.25 unit parlay with Davalishvili by KO or decision. Shamil and Chris does not go to decision, and Medic and Turner does not go to decision at plus 291. So it's a small parlay, but a couple props that I really like there. I'll put them together, get a pretty big plus money ticket, and I'm willing to see how that one shakes out. I think all of those are pretty live outcomes. And once again, wanted to increase my betting volume, limit my exposure. Let's see how it shakes. Welcome back.
Well, thank you for holding down the fort, my friend. Wi-Fi's out, so let's hope the hotspot on my phone holds up for the stream. Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing this fight. I think that this is going to be a great matchup to really see if Morales is able to handle this top level of competition. I just think that he's just level above. So he's the machine for a reason. I think that even if you're going to be training with Danny Sabatello, I think that Merab's the better wrestler here, and the damage that he's going to inflict on that, ready to go. I'm ready to take Merab. I'm ready to ride or die with him, and I think he has everything he needs to get this done. All right, we're on to the main card, an hour and 20 minutes in. If my Wi-Fi dies again, I don't worry, the stream's in good hands. I trust you. No, it's all good. This is a really stacked main card, and every single one of these fights is going to be a banger, and I'm pumped for it. First one of the night is going to be Jessica Andraj versus Cynthia Calfio. Jessica Andraj sitting at 21-9, just came off a pretty bad beating, but against someone like nobody else. And then Cynthia Calvillo sitting at 9-2-1. I'm seeing a lot of people think that Cynthia Calvillo is going to be the person to just absolutely wreck Jessica Andrade's day, but I don't see that way. I've actually got a little bit of a parlay, including Andrade as well, that finishes out the Taylor Santos one. I just think Jessica Andrade is too physically strong to be imposed the way that Calvillo wants her to. And I do respect Calvillo's ground game. I do think she's able to do that. I do think that she has a great ground game, but I don't think that she's able to execute it because Jessica Andrade is strong. She's got great hands. She has really, really good power at this division. And I would not be surprised if Jessica Andrade puts her lights out. What are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, man. I was way more convicted on Jessica Andrade before I watched all the tape. I will say that. But I will also say that I have 4 units of exposure on Jessica Andrade and parlays this weekend. And, I locked her in early. I do think she's better than Calvillo. I do think she should win this weekend. If I have to talk about why I felt more concerned after watching, I forgot how good Calvillo looked for portions of the Marina Rodriguez fight, where she was advancing positions and not trying to grapple. So she would advance the position and then strike hard, like a bunch of times as fast as possible, and actually busted up Marina pretty bad. I think that fight ended up going down as a draw. And I thought at the end of watching it that it either should have went to Marina or it should have been a draw because Cynthia, kind of put it on her for one of those rounds. And man, that for me was impressive. But then I also had to temper my expectations and, bring myself back to earth. I was looking at the fact that, Cynthia missed weight for that fight. I want to say by 5 pounds. So yeah, I should have been able to grapple her a little bit there and get some dominant positions. She also ate a lot of big shots on the feet in that fight. So I do think Cynthia's a durable enough fighter, but I don't think that, her skills are necessarily going to be the plus level she needs them to be to put on that wrestling dominance that we saw from Shevchenko. I do think that was fueled in large part by the physicality, where Andrade, who I expected to be more competitive in that fight, I did not think she was able to meet the physical requirement. And now, granted, that means I thought she should have been a plus 400. I didn't think she should have been plus 550. But I thought that, she was just thoroughly out-muscled, out-strength, couldn't meet the size requirements. This is a lot closer to her size. This is a woman that has wins at 135 pounds, fought bigger ladies before. Hunter says your exposure is fine. This is 125. Hey, I appreciate it. And I think the same, man. I really think that when I've seen Jessica, cash me these tickets against freaking Chukagian and them, I do get some inspired confidence. Granted, I think Chukagian's not as durable as somebody like Calvillo is going to be here. But 3 units at minus 141 I had on Jessica Andrade last time out against Caitlin. So, or last win, I should say.
You meant against Valentina.
I didn't track the bet on her against Valentina. But I think, I don't even know that I bet her. If I did, it was very small. But I just saw plus 550 night of, and I was like, come on, Jessica's not as bad as the rest of these ladies. But, man, I think that this is a winnable fight for her for sure. I think Calvillo's been, around for a long time. I don't think she's like this young up-and-coming prospect. I don't think she's ever been as impressive as Jessica, but she has been getting better. And I do think that she has a somewhat competent boxing game, not elite, but could keep minutes somewhat competitive if Jessica's not able to hurt her. And that would be my only concern. I'm on the over 2.5 rounds in my really long shot parlay as well, because I do think that this is a fight that's more than likely going to go over. But I do think, we could definitely see Andraj finish here. I think she's more likely to finish. And I also think that it's going to be hard for Calfio to get consistent takedowns because of that strength and that power. But Calfio does a couple interesting things I like. She likes to pull out the legs, like sweep the legs with her own leg while she's, shooting the takedown. So she has a couple like interesting skills. That was how she was able to get Marina down. Marina was pretty good on the first level, the first layer of takedown defense. So she started adding that second trip behind it. And it was getting her into like the body lock whizzer type position. So I think that that's at least interesting here. I think Calfio is going to try to make this a scrap. She's a tough girl. Like she's kind of like a gritty fighter. I just don't think she has the skills. And I think Jessica's probably going to win this fight. I'm basically free rolling 2 units on Jessica at -169, had that parlayed up with Arman Sarukian. And then I've got, 2 units on that ladies parlay, like I mentioned. So we've got Talia Santos, we've got Jessica Andraj, and then we're going to have Valentina Shevchenko in the co-main event.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying here. I do think that it's the birthday girl's time to shine tomorrow. With that being said, it is a wide line. You do have to give credit where credit is due, and Calfio does have tools. I just don't think she'll be able to execute those tools. I don't think she'll be able to execute her game plan. It's the same girl that I don't think Andraj would be competitive against Jessica I, right? So there's levels to this thing. I do think Andraj is. Yeah, I'd hope not either. I do think Andraj is going to be able to it's not like she's facing someone who's an actual 125 or 135er. Calfio used to fight at 115 as well. They're going to be more her size. And Andraj's power has shown to translate to this weight class, and I think that she'll be able to use it. In terms of DraftKings play, though, I could easily see this going over 2.5, over 3 grand. I could easily see this going to the judges' scorecard. So it's not going to be my favorite play on DraftKings. There's so many pay options this week that it's going to be kind of hard. It's going to be kind of hard to include Jessica Andraj in this one. I am going to be staying away from Calfio, though. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to be sweating it a bit, if I'm being completely honest, because I do think Andraj is a better fighter. I think she'll be able to do it in there. It's just it's hard to discredit the tools that Calfio brings to the octagon. So I got my play 2.5 units with the Panthers, who won yesterday, even though they scared me as soon as CMC went down. I know you're not a big football guy, but
Christian McCaffrey.
There you go. It's nice. And one of my fantasy leagues is screwed. I have both Gus Edwards and CMC in that one, but let's move. That's another story. And then you got Taylor Santos and Jessica Andraj. So I think we have one parlay almost exactly the same. So let's go us. And no, I'll be cheering for Jessica Andraj to get it done tomorrow. All right. Moving right on. This is one. I'm ready to talk about this one because I've been bouncing back and forth about this one all the time. Curtis Blades, 14-3 versus Jardizo Rodenstrike, 12-2. And if you can't hear it in my voice, I'm a bit fired up for this one. I love this spot here. And I talked about it earlier. I had a bet locked in, parlayed with Semmelsberger. And the leg I went with was that this fight is not going to decision. I think that this is a very simple binary fight. If Curtis Blades' chin is shot after that brutal knockout, and remember, it wasn't just that uppercut knockout. He got pounded with 2 shots when he was already lights out. If his chin is not shot from that, then he should be able to go in there, wrestle Rozenstruik, and just beat on him. We all know that Rozenstruik is not good on the ground. I think that the ground is better than over him, so there'd be no last minute KO here. And then again, if he's not able to finish him, this fight starts on the feet at every single round. So I think that Rozenstruik is going to have his chance to test that chin out. We know how powerful he is. We know how much power he brings to the octagon and how accurate his shots are. So if he's able to outpoint him, easy. My bet will cash. I do really like that spot there. I have a unit and a half on that with Matthew Semmelsberger. I should have gone harder. I regret it. But I'm loving that one. I think it's a very binary fight. It's this fight where I would target both in DraftKings and in the betting market. I think that on DraftKings as well, when you have someone like Rozenstruik, who is like 7.2K, if he is going to win, it's not going to be a decision. It's going to be a knockout, and that's going to score his pick. If Curtis Blades is going to win, he's going to get takedowns. He's going to get control time. I really like that one there. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. Before we do, though, I know we mentioned earlier, I was one of those crazy dudes who had money on Derek Lewis last time out, which made me very, very happy. Not only did I have his money line, but I also had him to finish because I thought that maybe he was able to do that, which was probably a dumb bet on my part, but I will run away with it anyways.
That was a very smart bet on your part. It's a heavyweight fight, and the guy was plus 350. Unless it's freaking the next champion, Cyril Gane. No, I'm kidding.
Ooh.
Unless it's I'm honestly not sure about that fight. I haven't taped it yet. But I do think he's live. I think there's a reason it's a pick him, and everybody else when Francis is going to fight him, except Stipe is not. But man, talking about this fight, I said it before, right? Blades cost me a little bit on that inside the distance play, and I think you're right to mention the fact that it's not just knockouts; it's like brutal knockouts, like Francis death twice, and then freaking that last one was just like horrifying. Like it was. If you guys haven't seen it, I told people last time, don't go back and watch this. Don't. You will be scarred. But you can hear it in between commercials. They are like on Fight Pass. They just have video of the octagon, whatever. And so it's like not looking into the octagon. I don't think it's just the sounds of Curtis in the octagon going for minutes upon minutes, guys. It's like not comfortable to listen to. So now it's been a couple times. We've already seen him get stung in other fights that he was able to like cling on to, like the Volkov fight. So this is like Volkov is like a hit you a bunch of times, get you to get out of there fighter. He's not a one-shot hit you and you just sleep. This is that guy. This is the guy who punches holes in people's face. Anybody remember Alistair Overeem's face having a hole in it?
Right in the
literally,
lip.
He was like, I think I'm just going to take a part of his face right now. And granted, were we seeing Alistair get tired there? Yeah, but get tired from like controlling from on top and trying to beat this guy up. So I think, I'm with you actually. I told you guys before, I got that fight doesn't go to decision violence parlay, 0.25 units. On that as well, at plus 234, I think it is. Those three fights I mentioned, the two from before and this one. And I think that's very live here. My only concern with that play is that Curtis just boringly wrestle F's him to a decision. I do think Jairzinho is way more durable than Curtis. And, like when he got death touched by Frankie Murder, that was like a really, really weird knockout. It just is. Like the fact that worked is unbelievable. It's literally that. It's like that sweeping. It goes across the camera from one side to the other. Like he was just throwing hammers out at the sides. I don't know how to defend that. I don't know how that works. That only works and generates power if you look like Francis. Don't try that at home, kids. If you punch somebody with both your arms completely out like that, it's probably not going to work for you like it worked for him. But I do. We got Gramps in the chat. Says Blades the mayor of Shadow Realm, and that actually might be true at this point. I do think Blades is a good fighter, and I think he's got all the skills to win this fight. And he does have pretty hellacious ground and pound, but his wrestling entries are not that good. They are a little predictable. They are seeable if you know what you're looking for. And I get what Dalton's saying, right? Alistair was able to control that fight from on top. That was a cool look for him. That was also a couple years back now. And again, Alistair, despite his success, has a hole in his face and will never look the same. Like that's the reality of that fight. He does not look the same anymore. He had to have a surgically repaired face. Is that out of the realm of possibility for Curtis here? No, it's simply not. And I think that if you are panic wrestling when you're dominating somebody on the feet, like go back and watch. He was dominating Derek Lewis on the feet. Derek was not landing punches. Derek wasn't throwing punches. So I don't know what it is. He just can't find this comfortability on the feet. And when he does find the comfortability on the feet, it's like at the wrong times. It seems to me like Curtis has a hard time putting it all together on fight night. He's kind of like that recluse guy. He doesn't seem like he loves this. Like, this is a big pay-per-view. This is big energy. This is, the kind of spot where Curtis could flop, unfortunately. So I see everything that you're saying. I think Curtis is the better fighter. When I line this fight, I got moderate favorite Curtis Blades here, -230. That's what I had set up. And I played Rosenstruck here. I did at +270. I hit that for 0.35 units. I know that I probably should have just hit the Rosenstrike KO line. I did touch that as well at +420. So I'm not going to add any more to that. But I do think, +280 right now is the best available market wide on Jairzinho, but a lot of books are hanging +240, +250. I think Bet Online probably just got some big action the way of Curtis Blades because they're further out from the rest of the market. But I think that this is at least a competitive enough fight for the moments it's on the feet. I don't think that I could trust Curtis anymore at these huge -300 and above indications. You're telling me he's going to win these fights 70 and 75% of the time. Maybe. A puncher's chance generally would be like 10 to 15%. You can't tell me that Jairzinho has the same puncher's chance as anybody else. It's just not. I don't think that's accurate. I think if most people hit you on the guard, they're not going to knock you out. This guy has knocked people out with one punch, not once. Like, that is more than one time in the UFC. Walk over, lead right hook, sleep. Yeah, and it's a guy who's, the Mara Shadow realm, like Gramp said. I think that this is a tricky spot for Curtis. Wish him luck. I always like to see wrestlers do well. I think Curtis is like a nice guy in MMA by and large. But I also just feel like sometimes he struggles with the violence of this sport. Sometimes he struggles staying focused for the duration of the fight. Sometimes he struggles with the cardio. Sometimes he struggles with knowing where to be at what time. Just a lot of questions on Curtis for me. And, I also think this is his last fight on his contract. I'd have to double check that, but I believe I've heard that. And that for me is a big red flag here too. I don't think the UFC wants him. I don't think the UFC is trying to send him home with a win. I'll just leave it at that. I think that this fight could go either way. And wow, I wouldn't have the confidence to make Curtis Blades a parlay piece at -300 this weekend.
No, he's definitely not a parlay piece, but the more I think about it, I kind of want to put more on that fight doesn't go to decision. I'm really liking it. If Blades is angry that he lost the last time out, maybe he'll go out there and just ground and pound his face in. And we saw how easily that Overeem was able to do it. And I do think that Blades is much better on the ground than Overeem. Shout out to Aiden. I'm ready to go too. If you didn't catch it earlier, I'm on Turner as well. I'm just waiting for my line. I'm waiting for it. And if I'm being completely honest, I think that Jairzinho Rosenstruck has more of a chance than the line is there. So, like I said earlier, I'm doing a free giveaway on DraftKings. If you just comment your DraftKings username, I'll send you an invite over my other video. And the thing is, I'm going to be playing Rosenstrike. So if you think I'm stupid, come take my money. I do not care. I think Rosenstrike is a great GPP option to play on DraftKings because if he does win, he'll score really big. And if you're able to pay low on that really low price tag for him, you're able to spend up. You're able to get my boy like Murad Dvalishvili. He's going to score another 1,000 takedowns. So I'm ready for it. And maybe we'll out there and we'll hit some plus 420 props as well. All right, let's move right along to what I saw earlier be called the most predictable fight on the card. I think this one has a lot of potential to be really fun. And honestly, no matter how much hate this fight is getting.
The most predictable fight on the card, this one?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I saw someone comment earlier that, and I was gonna make.
Well, God bless you guys. It's not the most predictable for me.
No,
I'll
I'm
tell
kidding.
you.
It was a bit of sarcasm. It was a joke. I completely think that this is going to be an absolute just weird fight to call. Okay. Here's the thing. Nick Diaz is Nick Diaz, and I think that his style and the Diaz brothers' style is one that I will always admire. But does he really want to be here this week? You watch those interviews. I mean, it's always Nick Diaz. He's always like that. But he's facing a guy in Lawler who's been active, who hasn't looked very good recently. And you just have two old guys who, if this fight was made, 5 years ago, it'd be a lot better than it is now. Let's just say that. And we have so many unknown variables, and we see that shadow boxing clip that has made the line just go crazy. You've seen all those things happen, and I'm just come right out of the gate and say it. I saw my plus 140, and I took my plus 140 shot on Nick Diaz. Strictly because there are so many unknown variables that I don't think that there should be any plus money involved in this fight at all. This fight could go all 5 rounds, and Lawler could be destroying him until one Stockton slap gets him out of there. You never know what's going to happen with this thing. I think that on the ground, if Diaz is actually training, he will have the edge there. If he's actually training, he'll have the cardio edge. If he's actually training, so many things can go his way. The problem is we don't know what his mindset's like. At the same time, we also don't know what is going on here. I mean, you look at all the accommodations the UFC is making for this fight to happen in the first place. Is this a setup? Is this supposed to happen? Is Diaz going to go out there and get his face? Is that what Dana White wants? No, Dana White wants Diaz to go out there, Stockton, slap him, make him some money. So I think that there's a lot more things into this than a plus 140 price tag entails. I think that line will be gone tomorrow when everyone sees Nick Diaz is fighting as an underdog. I'm going to place money on him. I think this is one of the spots where you never know what's going to happen. And if I had to predict something, it'd be a late finish for Nick Diaz. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going overboard. I think I have 0.98 units on it or something crazy like that. I don't know why I picked that random number. But it's one of those spots where I'm going to ride with him. If that money goes away, I'm okay with that. I'm going to be watching Nick Diaz fight. I'm a bit younger, so I haven't watched many Nick Diaz fights in my lifetime, and I'm excited to see it happen. And if everything goes to plan, I'd love to see him fight again, hopefully soon. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, boy. It's just a fight on the card that I really have, the least confidence in. The fight that I know the least about, what to expect here. I can say I've been very unimpressed by the recent run of Robbie Lawler. Granted, look at who he's fighting. He's not supposed to win a lot of those fights, but Neil Magny, Robbie Lawler at his peak, shouldn't have looked that poor against him. I don't think. Robbie Lawler has been pretty good about his counter wrestling game at various points. I remember the Johnny Hendricks fights. He's pretty good from those positions, man. He could sprawl, he could brawl, he could push somebody's buttons. And man, I see that Dalton's on the under 2.5 at plus 190. I just looked on best fight odds, plus 180 is the best available. So Dalton, it looks like you got a little closing line value. I wouldn't feel confident in that either, though, buddy, just because I don't feel confident in any read on this fight. Is there a good argument that Robbie Lawler should be minus 500 here? Or I'm kidding, minus 500 is obviously an exaggeration, but should Robbie Lawler be a pretty heavy favorite here? Maybe. He has been fighting. He has been training all the time for sure, definitely as his job. And he's been in the game. Nick's been out of the game. One of the things that, I initially, when I took my notes on this, I had outright lean, Nick Diaz slight, plus 133. Value side, Diaz, plus 133. That's what I had written down. And yet the more I look into this fight, the less confident I am that I even want to play that. And it's because, Cody Saftig, man, we got to give him credit. He's able to unearth some of these interesting details, man. Talking about Jake Shields said he never in his life about Nick Diaz drank alcohol prior to his retirement. And since then, I have been following Nick on social media. I'm not just one of the guys repeating this. I've been following him on social media. I have those stories ingrained in my brain where he's out at the club. Hey, what's up? Like him and the nunchucks and all the crazy shit that he does. And he has been, as George St. Pierre might say, intoxicated. And it hasn't always been a good look. It looks like he's up all night partying a lot. And granted, why are most fighters involved in this sport at an advanced age? It's because they don't know what else they're going to do. They don't know what the next career move is. And you see the guys that have that figured out stop fighting and they do other things. Alan Jouban, Perfect example, right? He's got the commentary gig, the modeling gig. He has all these other options. Doesn't need to keep fighting. When it stops going well, he's like, all right, let me get out of here. Just doesn't make sense, And I think, man, this fight for me just has so many red flags all over it, saying save your money.
This is what I was looking for. This was the one I was looking for, where it's a bunch of unknowns, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of it, man. Do I think that Diaz is kind of playing everybody for fools? Yeah, I do. I don't think that the weigh-in, the media day, I frankly don't care about any of that at all. In this matchup, in this context, what does it all mean? Like, how do you rate that? How do you interpret all of it? Except to say, he has always kind of been a bit odd. He's never talked about, like, I love it. Aiden says, something that kind of hits the nail on the head, man. It really is. But it also is a plant your flag type of fight. If you say Robbie Lawler shouldn't lose this fight because he's actually been fighting MMA fights and taking his life and career seriously, how can I argue? How can I push back and say, no, that has no merit? That doesn't make sense. I get the argument for betting Lawler in this spot. But then I look at Robbie Lawler and what I'm seeing, and he doesn't throw that much. And he has long bouts of inactivity, and he always has been accused of that. That's not recent. This is a 5-round fight. He hasn't been at 185 in a while. I know he's been at 185. I don't know what to make of it, guys. I think that, Nick Diaz is probably being undersold in this spot. Dude, go back and watch Robbie Lawler's shadowboxing video. That's a homework assignment. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It looks the same, but one has gotten retweeted 50 times and one hasn't. You understand? There's no difference. They look the same. They're both just going, like, there's no zeal behind it. I don't rate any of that crap. I think, why would Nick come back for this show? For money. Like, obviously. Why else would he come back? He'd come back for this show for money. But he also could be back for more than one fight. I think that he understands, for better or worse, everybody loves him and wants him to be here. And, like, he's talked about that openly in these interviews too. He's like, yeah, like, I basically was done with all this shit and didn't want to do it, but now everybody loves me. It's like, and he's not saying it in so many words, but that's the bottom line. He's like, I don't want this fight to happen. Everybody else does. Like, and that's true. Like, everybody.
All him wanting to fight Usman.
He has to be around. And if he wins this fight, if you don't think they're going to parlay him into another big opportunity, whether that's a number one contenders fight he doesn't deserve, whether that's a championship fight he doesn't deserve, whether that's a headlining pay-per-view spot against Conor McGregor or somebody, it's like, just get ready for it. It's coming. I'm letting you know now. And guys, if he doesn't look like shit, if he doesn't look out of shape, if he doesn't look completely washed and he looks like himself of old, who wins that fight? Then it's anybody's ballgame. And by the way, Robbie Lawler has not looked like the Robbie Lawler of old. I don't think either of these guys are going to. I think we're going to get some shitty, sloppy, diminished version of both of them. And, I see Dalton's point that it could be a train wreck and end early. I also think it could be a train wreck that just goes all 5 rounds and it's sloppy and there's, bouts of taunting and there's bouts of inactivity on both sides. And I think it could be a real crapshoot. I'm not going to touch this with a financial investment at this point. If I was to look at the prop market, Diaz double chance KO or decision, maybe.
It's funny you use the word investment because that's definitely not what it is for me. This is a pure entertainment bet. I'm going to go on this fight, and I have a few roommates who are not big UFC guys, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell them this guy was he's a legend in the sport. Both these guys are legends in the sport, but one of these guys has been fighting for a while, and if he looks like trash, then they're going to be like, what do you mean? And I'm going to live with that. But I'm excited to have my money on it so that I'm able to see a Nick Diaz fight because he's got some absolute classics. I mean, I did fight tape in my living room with my roommates with them, and they were loving it too. And that's the thing too is I had a good enough week last week where I can throw a unit on it. That's all I'm gonna say. Is I think Aiden's right. This is a 100 gambler fight, but I'm excited to go into it. I'm excited to watch it. And if they want to go out and put him against someone who actually is fighting for a money grab, then I'll go against him. But it's not like he's fighting a guy who's been winning fights constantly. So, someone got the same name as me.
I love that, dude.
Yeah, so do party hard, like the guy's name here, commented this. But yeah, I mean, he's maybe partying's gonna help him. You never know what happens with the Diaz thing. So
Yeah, no, he's on the John Jones supplement regimen of alcohol and recreational drugs.
Maybe that's how he got arrested. Did you see that? John Jones arrested again in 2021. All right, we're not gonna give that.
I don't like to kick a man while he's down, but DC has nailed on the head exactly everything that's true about John Jones more than one time. I'll leave it at that.
All right, let's go right along.
And I really mean that. I really mean that.
Okay. You know what? I'm excited for that fight. I will be hyped up watching it. But the next one, too, we have the minus 1,400 Valentina Shevchenko facing someone in Lauren Murphy. And I got to say, before I kick it to you, you did say you had a bet on Jessica Andraj against Valentina Shevchenko. Does that mean you are taking Lauren Murphy here too? Before I let you answer that, though, I think that Valentina Shevchenko is a level above every single person in this division, and I want to see a Valentina Nunes 3. I think that I could take either side there, but I'm really looking forward to that one. And this fight has no really relevance here because I think that Lauren Murphy has no chance, putting it bluntly. I think that Valentina is a absolute legend and has all the definitely not. You know what? If you want to go, you can go Hail Mary parlay Lauren Murphy out there, and you can let me get easier spots on DraftKings this week. How about that? But no, I think she's going to win this fight. I think she's going to finish. I have her locked in a parlay. What was with last week? It was Arman Sarzoukian, Volkanovski, and Shevchenko. I will probably have another bet with Shevchenko soon. But the one thing I just locked up minutes before coming on the show when I was waiting for someone who was stuck in traffic, is going to be I want her to finish, and I want more exposure on that. Is everyone saying, oh, this could go deep? I see a lot of hot takes saying it's going to go over. I think if Valentina Shevchenko wants to, she can go out there and she can absolutely dominate Lauren Murphy any way she wants. And what I did was, I'm not going to call it a bias bet, but I parlayed her to finish, which is minus 225. Parlayed her to finish with one of my favorite fighters in someone who is Casey O'Neill, who's fighting next week, against Antonina Shevchenko. And I think that there you go. I get some exposure on two good fighters. I think that Shevchenko does finish this fight. I will be having a lot of her on DraftKings as well. She's expensive, though. And there we go. There's my little
alternating bets. 1 for and 1 against the Shevchenko sisters, my brother.
You cannot compare Valentina and
I know. I think it's funny that you parlayed it together. You're like, I'm going to parlay your sister's success with your failure.
Exactly. And that's the one thing was I kind of wanted to wait for that because I have a feeling that if Valentina does go out there and destroy Lauren Murphy, then everyone's going to be like, oh, other Shevchenko sister can do that too. But no, I don't know what it is. You'd think that if you're good at something and you're trained with your sister all the time, if you and I don't know how Paul brothers always brought up, but if you're able to say that you and your sister can beat both Paul brothers. Anyways, I'm really high on Valentina, as is everybody else. What are your thoughts on that one?
Oh, boy. I think that I have the best bet of my life that I'm sitting on right now, if I'm being truthful with you, brother.
Let's go.
And that is 8 units straight on Valentina Shevchenko at minus 171 because I parlayed her 3 weeks back. I had Mo Miller at minus 330, I want to say. Let me double check. I got Mo Miller at minus 375. Excuse me. I got Arman Sarukian at minus 650, and I got Valentina Shevchenko at minus 1,200. I beat all those closing lines by about 200 points. So, before anybody says, well, it's this big, huge part. Yes, but I also beat the closing line. So I'm not just taking a bet on big favorites. It's big favorites that closed as massive favorites. because the market was so confident in them. Armand got up to minus 850. Mo Miller was minus 650, I believe. I think that was three, full dollars worth of value on that line. And then in the Shevchenko fight, right now, you're actually starting to see this line come back just a tiny bit because 5 Dimes is offering minus 1150, which was gone earlier today. So we're seeing that little bit of love come back on Lauren Murphy now as she hits like plus 1,000. But otherwise, it was just parlay city. And people are getting in now at the minus 1600s, at the minus 1800s, at the minus 2000s. And I'm not hating on that, but I'm just saying the reason this is the best bet I've ever made is because I locked it in so early. It's because I'm sitting on 8 units straight on a minus 1100 favorite at minus 171, and you can't beat that.
No, fair play. And I do want to have more Shevchenko exposure. I really do. It's just one of those spots where you can make any single bet you have just that much better. Because I think that even at a price like she is now, she is one of the only fighters in the entire world that can live up to it. And I really like that. So we'll see how it goes. I know like it's tough putting so much stock into someone who's that big of a favorite, but maybe I go in and throw her to finish again. Just threw it in the chat right there. I mean, I bet on Casey O'Neill against Lara Procopio for 3 units. So how can I not bet on her against Shevchenko? So, I mean, granted that was at a dog spot. This is not, I'm just excited for that one too. So we'll talk about that one next week. Hopefully you're back with me there again and we can talk about that one. I love Casey O'Neill too. So,
well, she absolutely robbed me blind last time because I was on Lara Procopio early. And like I actually think that I beat the closing line there by a bit. Like I think money kept coming in on Lara Procopio, and that one hurt my feelings. I was really, 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 really surprised to see her gas like that. But that's the way it goes, brother. And I certainly won't be rushing to the window to bet against Casey O'Neill moving forward. That I can assure you. I have not looked into that fight, but dude, Dalton, I was liking what I was seeing from Procopio. I really was, man. And go back and watch that. I think it was the Carol Rosa fight. She does not look like a bad fighter. She has 15 minutes of gas. She told her corner in between rounds, like, I feel sick. I don't know what was happening there. I knew the bet was over. I felt sick to my stomach too. And I had a pretty decent size exposure there. One of the bigger bets I've lost. So it was unfortunate. Also was told by somebody who's like one of the better gamblers in the history of BetMMA.tips. I'll just leave it at that. Had told me that he was all over Procopio. I think he had even bigger stakes than I did. And so that gave me tremendous confidence, and I went all in. And sometimes you lose when you go all in, but I think that, I feel much better about my 10 units on Valentina Shevchenko this weekend than I did about my 6 units or whatever it was on Lara Procopio at the time. So it is what it is, brother. I think that this is a fight that isn't all that interesting and compelling from a matchup standpoint, but I do like making money, and I think it's good from a making money standpoint.
You got that right. And I mean, I have the same amount of exposure on Casey O'Neill versus Procopio as I do on Shevchenko versus Murphy right now, which doesn't sit the right way. I want more Shevchenko. So if that's from a drafting perspective, if that's another juicy parlay, I mean, I'm a big NFL guy, so I will be parlaying Shevchenko with some NFL guys. But one last point that Procopio won.
She should be going with every NFL bet this week, right?
Oh, she should. That's just an easy way to make money. And I know a good friend of the show, Phoenix MMA, was telling me all about it. You can just parlay her with everything. But no, I had Procopio at O'Neill at like plus 120, plus 130, and it just kept going up. And I kept adding units, and that was one of my favorite bets I've made of all time. And I'm hyped over it. No, she isn't. I think she's even
she's your Chad and Hellinger. I understand.
Yeah. What is this? How do you know that? You got that going. Canadian. We have to. GMC's in my hometown. Anyways, we got to just say one last thing on this fight is big favorites are tough. I do like Valentina Shevchenko a lot, but I wouldn't go laying her straight. It's a parlay piece for a reason. I'm not as sold on the inside the distance prop as I would like to be, just because you never know how tough Lauren Murphy is, right? I think that if I was more sold on it, I'd go more because I do love Casey O'Neill in this spot, and that is one of my favorite parlays. So I appreciate the support on that one. But yeah, let's move right along to the main event of the evening. First of all, I'd like to get out of the way that any comments that I'm saying about this next fight, I will try my best to be unbiased because I don't think that Volkanovski won fight number 2. I am a biased Holloway fan, so that's fine.
Me too.
Been a Holloway fan for a while, so
although I did rewatch it enough times that I think it's more just an indictment of how we score MMA, because it's kind of like a draw, in my opinion. But you're not allowed to say that about fights. Like, you're not allowed to say that something was a 10-10. So you have to pick a winner. And I feel like round 3 is like eminently close. I think 4 and 5 went to Volk. I think 1 and 2 were clear max rounds.
I think that in no way it was a robbery. You cannot call it a robbery because it was such a close fight. But I do not think that Volkanovski should be the guy with the belt right now. And I do think that if Max went up against Ortega again, that we'd get an even bigger line. So thank you, Frank. I appreciate that because you know what? I completely agree with that one. Anyways, we have Volkanovski here against Ortega. I watched the whole season of Ultimate Fighter. I don't think you did you? No, it wasn't the best for entertainment purposes, but we showed that, I don't know, Ortega's improving and he's shown to be a different fighter since his Korean Zombie win. But at the same time, I don't think he's got this here. I think people are putting too much stock into that Korean Zombie win. I think that Volkanovski is better almost everywhere. I don't think he's going to put himself in those submission spots. So I'm going to nullify Ortega's submission opportunities. And I think that Volkanovski gets it done. And he is another parlay piece of mine. I have Arman Sukin from last week, and then I have 2 units on Shevchenko and Volkanovski straight. So I think that Volkanovski is going to get it done. And I think that we're going to see a Max versus Volkanovski 3 after Max beats Yair Rodriguez on, I think, November 13th it is. Yep, just got announced. So I'm excited to see that. I think Volkanovski does this pretty easily. And yeah, am I wrong?
Oh, dude, I don't know. I really don't know. This is a tricky fight, man. I think that, a lot of them, I'm going to stress that, people that I like and respect are all over Volkanovski in this spot, which gave me a little pause. I got in on Brian Ortega early, put down 0.5 units at plus 150 because at the time I was seeing minus 150 on Alexander Volkanovski on Bet Online. And, I was thinking, man, maybe we're going to see even more love come in on Brian Ortega market wide. And, that's the line that we're going to see. So I wanted to lock that in early. And, then we see, actually, no, the market goes the other way, right? And that could be for a number of reasons, right? That could be correct line movement. That could be sharp, or it could be, the public who has been burned a couple times by, this guy Volkanovski that they never trusted before, that they want to, get behind now. And I really don't know what to make of it, man. I think that from all the takes I've heard, I just am surprised to see people so low on Brian Ortega still, because I've always thought Brian makes up sometimes for what he lacks in skill with heart and toughness. And, fights are first and foremost will battles. They are not skill battles first and foremost. They're will battles, and you have to have the will to be there. I do think that Brian Ortega, to not have the will beat out of you in that Max Holloway fight is impressive, man. And the way that he came back from that showed me that he's a real fighter, that he put the time in, that he literally sat down, shut up, said nothing, disappeared, and got way better. And I'm not saying that like one fight versus Korean Zombie makes you reevaluate the guy's whole career. But what did we know about him before? He had the power to send Frankie Edgar literally off the ground, like put him out of his shoes with an uppercut. Frankie Edgar's no slouch. I think that was the first time that Frankie got like killed like that. And it was a brutal, brutal knockout that Frankie has never fully recovered from. He has never been the same since. So I think that, that was after he said, I got to work on my boxing. I got to make some improvements. I have to get better in that area because he was getting tooled up. So yeah, he gets leveled on by Max Holloway, who, by the way, has done that to Jose Aldo. Like for parts of the fight, Volkanovski. Like he's done this to a lot of guys where he starts landing shots where it starts to be overwhelming. Oh, what's going on? He's hitting me from over here. He's over there. Now he's back over this way. Max has all these. He's got a very modular game. He can switch between tools. He can spinning back kick you from both sides. He can kick you in the face with both feet. He can. It's like how do you see and predict what's going to come next from Max? He could just touch you up with hands for the whole time. So I think both of these guys, it's hard to evaluate them fighting Max Holloway. He's a tough guy to look good against. And that's where you got to give all the credit to Volkanovski. He did look good. He's not been made look like an amateur by Max. He's been made to look competitive with him. But Max is a what? Striker. He's going to go out there and strike with you. That's what he wants to do. That's what his game is. Like Max isn't going to switch levels and take you down, right? And I'm not saying that Brian Ortega is some shot takedown guy. I'm saying it's a different perspective. It's a different way of thinking about fighting. He's not thinking about, I need to knock this guy out. He's thinking, I need to finish. He's thinking, I need to put myself in a position to get this guy out of here. And he could do that with his hands. He's shown that. He has good skills, good tools for hitting somebody like Volkanovski. He's got those knees up the middle. He's got pretty decent hooks. He's got nasty uppercuts that have hurt people badly. And that he throws with like a whipping motion. He's pretty decent at those, man. He's got a long, wiry type of frame, but he's not weak. He looked weird with that shaved head in the Korean Zombie fight, but he looked strong in the clinch. He was pushing him against the cage. He was getting good head position. A lot of things that you didn't see from Brian Ortega, you saw from him in that last fight. So I'm not saying we rewrite the book on him. I'm saying we already know that this guy could get beat up for 15 minutes and submit you. That's a fact. We already know that this guy can hang around in a fight where he's getting absolutely tooled on and not quit on himself. He did not quit on himself in that Max Holloway fight in ways that are probably like incomprehensible to most human beings. Like you have to be so sure. Like he was so thoroughly shown the door there by Max Holloway, and he comes back for more, and he seeks to get better. Like this guy is a dogged competitor, man, and I think that Volkanovski is as talented as he's given credit for, but I just think we might not be evaluating the skills of Brian Ortega fairly, man. This is a guy who can finish fights from the clinch. He does not need to take somebody down. That I'm telling you right now, if you think he needs a submission, a takedown to get a submission, you're wrong about that. He hasn't needed them to get them in past fights. He has needed somebody in the body, gotten them to bend over, and then snatch the neck. I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility. We've seen Volk is a tough guy. He's a durable guy. He, in some ways he reminds me of Brad Riddell. Those guys are very talented. They've got plus level skills on the feet, but sometimes they just randomly get touched. They get stung, they get knocked down, they get hurt. And it's like, whoa, what happened? Like this guy's super durable. What's going on? And he has these flashes of instability and durability issues. So I do think he's a tough guy, right? He took the shots from Chad Mendes and came back. He took the shots from Max Holloway and came back. How many times can you do that, right? We got Brian Ortega doing that. We got Volkanovski doing that. Not in every fight, but, he was getting dropped by those uppercuts. It wasn't just he was getting outlanded. He was getting hurt. He was getting touched up. I don't think that Brian's going to be able to land with impunity here. I do think he's going to be losing minutes on the feet. I refer to my notes. I had slight lean towards Volk, minus 125 in my notes, and everybody else is telling me he should be minus 300 here. Maybe that's true, and maybe we're going to see that borne out. I do think he's got the more comprehensive striking game. I think he adds more layers to what he's doing. I think he's better at feinting. I think he might be able to confuse Brian and make him miss, but I think that if Brian touches him a few times, he can hurt him. I don't think it's going to take Brian 50 clean punches. If Brian is able to put hard, clean shots on him, he's shown the ability to knock somebody cold. That's just a fact. On top of that, he's got maybe the most dangerous submission game in the division. It's kind of hard to argue with that. His guillotines, he could pull them off from the feet. He could pull them off from the ground. He's a good transition grappler. And I just think that this is, how many fights do we all say this is just, such an easy read? Everybody is telling me this is an easy read for Volkanovski in a title fight. against a guy who we have very little footage on in the last few years. And the only thing we know about him is that he says publicly, my girl tells me not to go to the club. I'm a jerk on The Ultimate Fighter because I don't spend time with my team because I'm doing my own shit. For me, that's a guy who is taking his own career really seriously. I see what Gramps is saying. Ortega money line at plus 162 on Bet365. I can't say that didn't catch my eye, but yeah, I do think that Gordo's right that this might get even wider. But I don't know, man, because I really have a hard time reading the line movement on this fight. Everybody that I hear and respect that's saying they're putting big money behind this, the line's staying at minus 175. So
the thing too is it's a big card, and what happens is with big cards, we have people who aren't as experienced as us, or who just want to go out there and put money on it, and they're just gonna go in there. They're gonna throw their money on the people they know. They're gonna bet the lineup on Valentina. They're gonna bet the lineup probably on Diaz just because of his name value, and they're gonna bet the lineup on Volkanovski because they know that he beat Max Holloway. Max Holloway beat Ortega. The people who are to be betting on Saturday morning are not the same people who are betting now. All right, it's when we go out there put our bets. No one who's a degenerate gambler who's at Vegas just to watch the fights is betting week in advance and moving line movement. They're betting the day of, and I think that the line's going to move like crazy on the for like in the way of Volkanovski. So I think Ortega can close at plus 180 tomorrow. That is my general like actual guess. Is I think it's going to be a huge line, which is why I snagged some Volkanovski at minus 170 in my parlay. I think that everything you say is correct. I think that Ortega is very, very dangerous, and we know that. Like, I just don't think he's winning minutes. I think if you want to bet Ortega, I would be completely happy with you betting him inside the distance, because I think that if he does win this fight, this biggest path to victory is probably inside the distance, which is a much better line. I'm just going to go over a few things said here. Yeah, a lot of damage accumulated. Lots of strikes landed, and I do think that it's a completely different fight. It's hard for me to put stock into those two different fights because Ortega is not the same, and Volkanovski played a perfect game plan to beat Max, at least in the first fight. I do think he lost the second fight, so I'm not going to get into it much there. And then you, like exactly like this, what Frank is saying right here, that Ortega was scared of Volkanovski, and that like he did. He had horrible body language there, and even at the weigh-ins, you see, or the face-offs, you see Volkanovski saying that you cheat, he's not worthy. Volkanovski's mad, and he wants to win the fight here, and I think Volkanovski's hungry to win it. The problem I have is, no, I don't really have a problem with it. I think Volkanovski is going to win it. I am scared. I think the only way that Ortega wins this is if he rocks him and then subs him. I would look at the sub line. If you do get plus 80, that is a good line. I am going to stick with my Volkanovski play, though. I think that he gets it done here. If it's a decision, it's a decision. He can get it done any way he wants. I think that he's the better striker, wrestler, and I think just overall the smarter guy. So I think I'm happy with my spot there.
And I totally get where you're coming from, my man. When I broke apart this fight, I wrote an article about this for Roto Grinders. I'm not sure if it published yet, but I sent that into them earlier. I talked about the fact that I like Brian inside the distance if you're going to play him, because I do think he's going to need a finish here to win. Right now that's plus 300, I believe. So I don't think that that's the worst way to look at playing Brian in this spot. If you don't want to take exposure on the money line. Meanwhile, on the Volkanovski side, I think Volkanovski 4-5 decision at plus 100 is a no-brainer if you're on the Volkanovski side. He's mostly been a decision fighter. I think his path to winning here would be, an attritional beatdown, because Brian Ortega, for any other fault you want to point to, is tough and durable. So I do think that he's not just going to get folded over here with one punch. Anything's possible. It's MMA. But I think that, Volkanovski late, Volkanovski decision, all good stuff. Volkanovski by decision, by the way, is plus 140. I do think that that's how this fight plays out. I lean Volkanovski. I lean Volkanovski by decision. I lean him winning minutes here throughout. But the reason I don't have the confidence to back him right now is because I'm just afraid of what's going to happen if, number one, he gets hurt. Most guys' reaction to getting hurt, and I will credit him. He hasn't always reacted by shooting. Sometimes he reacts by throwing punches back. And, he was able to sting Chad Mendes on the counter when he was hurt because Chad Mendes came in a little bit with impunity. But, I'm always worried that a guy's going to get stung and try to wrestle because that's what most people do in an MMA fight for obvious reasons when they're hurt. And we've seen Volkanovski get hurt. We've seen him try and press people into the fence and these kind of things. Brian's just weird, man. Like, he will jump up on the cage, push off it with 2 feet to try and guillotine you. Like, he's not like a normal grappler. That Cub Swanson fight, he went for the guillotine right before he got it, lost it, re-grabbed the head, and then he got it. So it's just like he's insistent on it, and he's got a height advantage. So I know that he doesn't have the reach. Like, Volkanovski in striking exchanges should be at tremendous benefit because of that. But the anatomically just makes it easier to guillotine somebody if they're way shorter, like from the feet especially. Like, I don't know. Just a lot of things to me stand out as like potential pitfalls here for an otherwise excellent and underrated, frankly, champion in Volkanovski, who's phenomenal. And I just think this might be one of the harder matchups for him in the division. Against strikers like Holloway, he's proven I can go with the best strikers. Like, I can do that. But can you go with the best all-arounder? This guy who's just got a weird set of tools where he can knock your block off. He's pretty tough. It's going to be hard to get rid of him. What are you going to do? Submit him? It's like, no. So I'm probably going to need to knock him out. Max Holloway tried. Literally had to put a historical beatdown on the kid to get him to go away. Had to teach him how to lose, by the way, because he didn't know how. He just wins every fight, even when he's losing them. So Max had to like send him home. I think that Volkanovski hasn't been known for doing that. So I think he might let him hang around here. I think he might, just be in a 5-round fight with the kid. And if you're in 5-round fights, that's 25 minutes. It's a long time, man. Anything could happen in a fight. Anybody could slip on a banana peel. The best guy could get hurt one time and lose it all. And I'm always looking for guys that present danger, man. I just don't think it's safe anywhere. Where is Volkanovski safe in this fight? It's a high stakes fight. It's for me a highly volatile fight, and Volkanovski on the cards if it goes there. Volkanovski by unanimous decision was at a pretty decent price, I think. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see Brian win an early round here. I think I predicted Volkanovski 2 times 49-46, 1 times 48-47. But I do think he's going to win this. I think it's a great fight, man. I think it's one of the more compelling fights on the UFC calendar here. Just phenomenal. And I told you, I've had a hard time picking featherweight fights. So I'm not saying that I'm the freaking, the board reader here. But in my long shot parlay, I'm on Volkanovski 4-5 decision. I'll just be fair about that.
I completely get what you're saying. I get what Gramps is saying as well. We all have those fighters we just can't bet against, especially at good plus money. Let's call mine for this week Nick Diaz because, oh, wow.
I love it.
I really appreciate you breaking down that fight with me. I mean, I see a lot of good takes here. Predicted the future. I think so. I think this is more what it's like. 5-round clinic. I think that it's going to be dicey because we always know how good he is at finishing. So it's going to be close. Anytime, Frank. Thank you for coming hanging out with us. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you very much to you as well, Dalton. So I hope you make some money as well. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in, and I big thank you to my guy LiamPicksFights for showing up here and breaking down this beautiful set of cards. Like I said 1,000 times already, free money, free DraftKings. I'll try my best to convince Liam to get into it as well after the stream. Just comment your DraftKings username below my other video. Other than that, though, I think that wraps it up for us. 13 great fights. Make sure to check us out on Twitter because we'll be posting our full bets. I'll be posting some lineups, and we're going to make some money on this weekend. So check out my other YouTube videos as well. Thank you very much, Gramps. You as well. And let's make some money. So thank you guys very much. Any final words, Liam?
Absolutely. Just want to say, man, thank you very much for having me on. Always a pleasure. I love doing this. Rush back. Got caught in a little bit of traffic, but we're able to make it here, able to make it happen. So I'm excited about this card, man. Haven't had this much exposure on the UFC in some time. I got, 14 units or something wrapped up in parlays, man. So I'm fired up about it. I'm going to be sweating. I'm going to have many shirts ladies and gentlemen, for the fights on Saturday night, but I am fired up about it. I'm really excited. I'm going to have to go wrap some people up myself, strangle some people at jiu-jitsu. You know what we do, but let's see if Brian T. City can get that strangle going this weekend. Let's see how these fights shake out. We got the best UFC slate we've had in quite some time. And if you guys like what I'm doing, if you like these breakdowns, go ahead, check out what I'm doing for Roto Grinders. Sports betting, I write written previews for them. You could also check me out on Twitter at LiamPicksFights. You can find me on YouTube at LiamPicksFights. Go ahead and get subscribed over there if you aren't already. I bring on smart guys like Gordo, and I bring on a bunch of other plus EV handicappers trying to help you guys identify good spots, good habits, ways you can make money betting on these sports. It ain't easy, but you know one thing, we're here each and every week for you guys trying to make it happen. And so God bless you all. Enjoy those fights. Until next time, I've had a real pleasure being here.
Thank you, my friend. And, you know, Liam's great at what he does, but if you guys want some more football action too, you know where to find me, other videos on the Plays and Fades channel. So thank you very much, guys, for tuning in.
Don't find me for my NFL plays.
No, we will. Maybe we'll get you to get some plays with us sometime soon. But no, thank you guys all for tuning in. I hope you guys all make some money, and make sure to message me if you have any more questions, DFS or betting related. Thank you guys, and have a great rest of your Friday night. Peace.